content has no shame. And Lucy's tight box comes in first. Lucy does dabble, Lucy does dabbleverse, Lucy does dabble, Lucy does dabbleverse, Lucy does dabbleverse. Lucy tight box brings the facts, and she breaks them down for us. Lucy does dabbleverse. La la la, Lucy has a tight box and she shares it with dabblers. No, not like that, but she does this show for us. Lucy does dabble, Lucy does dabbleverse, 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 yes she does, yes she do it, Lucy does dabbleverse, yes she does, Lucy does dabbleverse. Lucy does dabbleverse, Lucy does dabbleverse, Lucy does dabbleverse.
Welcome everybody to Lucy Does Dabbleverse, and today I am very excited to welcome a refreshing and graceful guest who will never convince me to get a breast reduction. It is Miss Judy from AA Legal Focus. Thank you so much, Miss Judy, for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to meet you.
It is so wonderful meeting you, and I am so excited to be able to have you, a YouTube lawyer, a regular lawyer, a lawyer who practices in North Carolina, mostly, I believe, in the area of divorce, talking with me about a right of publicity lawsuit today.
Okay, so the whole disclaimer is I've never handled such a case, and I don't practice in New York, so you get what you pay for. So
yes.
I'm happy to lend my time. I spent probably 14 hours reading all this stuff. And like I said, I have vocal problems now. I think it's due to aging. So I have to constantly suck on lozenges and keep drinking water and stuff.
I think everybody will be more than happy to be patient with you for that. And I know that this is a little bit of out of your wheelhouse, but you are a seemingly very competent attorney. And so I'm very curious, does North Carolina have similar laws to what the sections 5051 in the New York State right of publicity laws are, or are they completely different? No idea?
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
No,
sorry.
It's no problem. No problem at all. So I know you just said that you read quite a bit about this lawsuit. Can I get kind of your initial impressions of what Stuttering John's complaint actually says?
I mean, the complaint pretty much reads like a bunch of hurt feelings, you know, kind of like, oh, these people are making fun of me and they're making tons of money. So I can see why he's upset, but I'm not sure if it's a legal claim.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point. I can certainly understand being upset about something like this, but the entire point and the standard of a right of publicity lawsuit, at least my understanding as a paralegal, is that you have to kind of be able to get into claims that your likeness has been used in ways that are legally not acceptable. And I personally think, I know you've been warned that I am quite biased being friends with Karl and Shuli. But I personally think that they didn't go outside of that realm, because a lot of the standards within New York sections 5051 do give legal exceptions when it comes to things like satire or comedy or newsworthiness or opinion. And that's where it becomes questionable about if the complaint itself actually is describing any of those things, or if it's just kind of talking about couch cushions.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I saw mainly was the amended complaint, which again reads like a bunch of grievances. Like, wow, they're using me. They're making fun of me. They're making money off of making fun of me. But isn't that what parody is? Or satire, comedy? You're making fun of people. So I kind of feel like the attorney probably should have focused on the more, I don't know, valid points instead of mentioning the sofa cushion thing, which was ridiculous because I still remember learning in criminal law way back in law school that you have no privacy rights to your trash. So, and supposedly the trash was illegally in the street too. So, I mean, that's kind of, hurts your feelings that someone took your old sofa cushions, but you didn't even want them. So
you're making a perfect point. In criminal law, if you throw out garbage and a police officer comes and picks up that garbage, that's perfectly legal because you've thrown it out. So, there's no such thing as stealing thrown out and discarded couch cushions. It's a little bit silly. And I do agree that there probably could have been much more interesting and valid legal arguments put into that complaint, an amended complaint. And I think that when I was sending you documents for this, the reason that I sent you the amended complaint as opposed to sending you the initial complaint was actually because there's not a lot of change between those two documents. In fact, the main change is something that I think you actually identified when you were speaking with Stuttering John and Vince the lawyer, which is that Tabor Benedict, the attorney representing Stuttering John, actually changed the spelling of his name. That is what he did.
I have never seen a legal pleading where someone could even spell their own name correctly. So, and can I mention something else? The first filing that I saw in that huge PDF you sent me first. Why did he CC his summer intern on that? It made no sense whatsoever. That was weird.
Tabor Benedict is a very interesting, or Tabor Benedict, I guess, as he might call himself. He's a very interesting attorney. There's been a lot of speculation lately that he's no longer going to be Stuttering John's attorney. I don't know how accurate that is. There's been no withdrawal of attorney that has actually happened within the filings. So I don't know if that's true or not, but there's been some speculation there. And I agree with you. I've never seen that. As a paralegal, I draft a lot of legal documents. I have never seen a misspelling of a name, and even more bizarrely, on a signature block. So he's typing in his own name incorrectly onto that signature block.
And the CCing the summer associate or intern, that's just like the wackiest thing. So there's a lot of things. I mean, I watched tons and tons of your footage over the last 2 days. So I feel that Benedict is totally outclassed by the defense attorney. The defense attorney clearly has much more experience. And then you said that Benedict actually got disbarred. So before I comment on that, of course, I wanted to confirm it myself. So I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, he hit somebody while driving drunk and severely injured a bicyclist. So, and he served some prison time. How long was the sentence?
The sentence was 10 years. It's unclear how long of that he actually served, but he was disbarred for 10 years. So it would be consistent with him getting out of jail to then be readmitted to the bar shortly thereafter. But I can't find any confirmation that he was actually jailed for 10 years, even though that was his sentence. I don't know if you saw also one of the craziest parts of that is that when he was sentenced to jail, he actually threw himself a going away party and told all of his friends that he was headed to Europe. He was going on a long trip to Europe instead of going to jail. Yes.
Oh my He seems like quite a character because, I act stupid on YouTube and stuff. I'm sure people have seen that, but it's all for fun and comedy. But this guy, from what little I've seen of him, he seems to think very highly of himself. And he looks like he's wearing makeup a lot of the times.
I agree.
And in some of his emails, he uses the word I excessively. Like, I note that, and I will do this, and I say that, and I was like, what's up with this guy? He likes to dress up in these costumes and, just very strange behavior. I'm so surprised he got his license back.
I am as well. So he's what is referred to as a Gats baby. So I believe that he is one of these rich kids from the Hamptons. I don't know this. I know this from New York Post articles, so let's take it with a grain of salt. I don't know how accurate any of this is, but he was a rich kid from the Hamptons who I think probably had a lot of help getting into lawsuits or getting into practicing law. And it's hard to become an attorney. It is a lot of work. It is not an easy thing to do. It seems like he might have been handed a couple of things along the way, and that might be why he was readmitted.
That is so weird because I haven't heard of any attorney who was actually in prison for a certain number of years. And then, he gets his license back.
Yeah, it's completely crazy to me. And I agree with you. I think you bring up a really good point when you said that it seems like Tabor Benedict is quite out-lawyered, shall we say, by Danny Savalos, who is the attorney for Karl and Shuli. Danny is an absolutely he's a news commentator. He works for, MSNBC, CNBC. He makes commentary on all of these things. I think that he's actually made some commentary on the I think the Wendy Adelson case, which I know you've also been doing a lot of videos about over on AA Legal Focus. But he has prided himself in becoming what I think is a really talented attorney who is great at citing case law and great at making legal arguments. And I think that Tabor Benedict missed the mark on that a little bit, if I can say so myself.
Yeah. So I think I heard John saying that his attorney was working on contingency. So what I surmise is that this guy, he was disbarred for maybe a whole decade. So this is his way of getting back into the swing of things and getting publicity for himself by taking on this case on a contingency fee basis.
So that I do think that that's a little bit peculiar. In New York State, we have almost exclusively e-filing at this point, which means that almost all of our records are available online. Anybody can view them. We can go onto a website that's called NICEF, and we can look at all of these case filings. And one of the things that you can do on that website is you can actually search by attorney. And this seems to be the only case that he's handling. So everything seems a little bizarre and suspicious. I'm not sure how Stuttering John found him. I'm not sure how John decided to choose him as his attorney. And I agree. I was completely shocked when John mentioned the contingency thing because I that's not regular for a case like this, I would think anyway.
Well, maybe some attorney who thinks it's going to bring lots of fame plus some sort of big payoff for him. So,
you
or maybe his family's so rich he doesn't need the money. So he's like, yeah, this will be fun.
It'll be a fun challenge. I get to talk about couch cushions. I get to talk about illegal recordings. I get to do all the fun stuff in this thing.
Yeah. And it is kind of a funny lawsuit. I mean, I do feel bad for Shuli and Karl, because they probably have to pay their attorneys something for this. And, it's very stressful to be involved in litigation because even if something's not happening actively, it's kind of hanging over your head the whole time until the whole thing is finally over.
That's an interesting point as well. I actually have been accused both by John and by Vince quite a bit that I said that I wanted to get sued. I wanted to be a part of this lawsuit. I wanted to be a defendant. I would never want to be a defendant in a lawsuit.
No.
I love sleeping. Sleeping is my favorite thing to do. I don't want to
Yeah.
lose sleep over this. I don't want to pay an attorney. What I actually said was that I think that, and you can correct me on this if I am totally missing the mark here. I think that typically when you name defendants in a lawsuit, what you want to do is you want to name all of the interested parties. And so
Yeah.
this lawsuit revolves around two different events. It revolves around an event called DabbleCon 2, and it revolves an event called Dabble House. And I believe that, and again, I'm not an attorney, so maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but I believe that anybody who was involved in those events, who made commentary on these recordings, who participated in making content about Stuttering John, who violated his right of publicity, as he claims, should be included in this lawsuit. And I was involved in both of those events. So to me, it was surprising. I wasn't begging to be included. Nobody wants to be sued. Being sued is awful. And even as a divorce attorney, as a woman who's been twice divorced, it's not fun to be a part of a lawsuit, even if it's something as simple as a divorce. We don't want that.
It's never simple.
It's never simple.
Yeah. Well, can I also comment on the very beginning of the lawsuit papers, which I saw, was that the plaintiff also sued, or his attorney sued, the names of Karl and Shuli's podcasts, which is bizarre because they're not corporations. They're not incorporated. So at least where I practice, the more proper title would be Karl Heatberger DBA, who are these podcasts, and Shuli Egar DBA, the Shuli Network.
That was one of the first things that I found so peculiar. Again, I think the defendant caption, if I had studied law, became an attorney, this is not the defendant caption that I would have written.
Yeah.
I thought that it was a very peculiar. Wrong. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that I'm not crazy about that, because I've kind of been feeling like I'm crazy about that. Now, it is very, I don't even know how to describe it. It's the entire thing is bizarre.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So because you've been reading up on this for quite a while, so what kind of cause of action could he potentially have against Kate Meany in a civil context?
That's a great question. So you now, I assume, know that Kate Meany is being requested to be added to the lawsuit. So I actually have a clip, and we'll play it maybe after this, where John mentions to you that one of the defendants is from Manhattan, or one of the potential defendants of Manhattan is from Manhattan. And in that clip, you seemed a little bit confused by that. You seemed a little taken aback, presumably because you didn't know that Kate Meany was being requested to be added. At this point, she is not a defendant. And what if I understand correctly, with my little meager brain, if I understand correctly, I believe that what John is claiming is that because Kate illegally recorded the phone calls and then handed that information over to Karl and Shuli, that John believes that she has also violated his right of publicity. You're making exactly the face that is in my brain right now.
Yeah, because she was a party to the recording. Plus, it's assumed that in New York, it is okay to record someone without their consent, as long as you know. That's what I'm assuming from what I've read. So I don't see why she should be joined as a defendant, because she didn't do anything with it in terms of commercial use or trying to make money off of it.
Absolutely. And not only that, but again, when you were speaking with John, and he was explaining to you why Kate was kind of being added to the lawsuit, which he didn't really explain to you, but he explained that she was from Manhattan, and that might be a reason to not change the venue. I actually want to play that clip for just a moment. I've actually added a portion of the complaint to this clip, and we will look at that portion of the complaint because I thought that this was particularly interesting. In this clip, John is going to be claiming that Kate was coerced into creating these recordings.
And the first live event was in Rochester. Either way, what they did was a violation of my right of publicity. So wherever, I should win wherever I go.
Who's in Manhattan?
Oh, that's the girl that taped me. But see, we don't know if she was somehow, coerced or, extorted to do, stuff by these defendants.
So I'm going to pause it right here. What John has just said is we don't know. Now, this was just from the other day. You were on John's show. I believe it was on the 16th, so just about a week ago. He says, we don't know if Kate was coaxed into handing over these tapes. Now, if that's the case and she was coerced, that would be something very bad against Kate. That would have nothing to do with this lawsuit. But what John actually says in the complaint is quite different than this. He says something very definitive in the complaint. In the complaint, he says, upon information and belief, in December of 2024, defendant Egar again contacted Kate Meany to coax her into recording plaintiff without his consent. That is a definitive statement. It continues, despite Miss Meany's prior assertions to plaintiff that she would never tape him again, Egar induced her to surreptitiously record plaintiff a second time. Again, a definitive statement. Egar threatened Miss Meany that if she did not help him record new conversations with plaintiff, that he would publicly spread false rumors that Miss Meany had a romantic relationship with plaintiff. Now, that is very different than what John just said. I'm going to back it up a little bit, and then we'll have a little conversation about this so we can hear what he says yet again.
Extorted to do, first or, extorted to do, stuff by these defendants. So we don't know yet. We have to think.
Well, actually, we probably should stop talking about your lawsuit because this is stuff you should talk about with your attorney.
And that's officially the best legal advice that he's gotten, I think, from you.
Yeah,
right there.
He should have just shut your mouth and stop talking about this lawsuit because it's pending. Because on one of your shows, I saw that you showed a little clip of him talking with Ava about the case, and that is not helping him.
It's not helping Karl or Shuli either. They should everybody should not be talking about this lawsuit. That's why I'm elated to be able to talk about it with you today, because neither of us are litigants in this case. So we can talk about it freely. That's the genius of not being involved in it. So what do you think about that John was explaining to you? We're not sure if she was coerced, if Kate Meany was coerced, but then in the complaint, they're making these very, very accusatory statements that Shuli did some awful things. Do you have any? I was surprised when John said that to you, I guess is my point.
Well, it just kind of shows how he can't keep the story straight. It's like, which one is true? Because I would hope his attorney went over every single detail with him prior to filing the case. But on the other hand, from a legal perspective, I don't think that matters. Who cares if Kate was coerced into doing it? But I still don't think he has much of a claim against her. I mean, what's he going to sue her for? Emotional distress? Those kind of cases are pretty impossible to win.
Pretty impossible. And also, I would think that it would be a different lawsuit than this. That doesn't have to do with right of publicity, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, just from my outside view, though, I kind of feel like he would have his strongest claim based on the online broadcasting of his phone calls or something, where the defendants supposedly charged $40 per person to hear his phone calls. But that wasn't really a performance, though. It was just like a phone recording, which Kate voluntarily gave them. Yeah. So I'm not sure. I mean, this is out of my wheelhouse. But if I were his attorney, I would have focused on that instead
Yeah.
of all this other stuff. Like, oh, then they took my sofa cushions and people are laughing and wanting to touch the sofa cushions or take pictures of them. And, they keep making fun of me, constantly showing bits of my show. And I think there was something in the complaint where it clearly said something like how the defendants intersperse comedy and reactions with his stuff. I'm like, well, then isn't that okay? Like, people can talk about you if you're a celebrity.
Yeah.
They can make fun of you.
So, and if I was John at this point, I would be leaning into it, right? At this point, it's silly. I mean, I wouldn't be talking about the lawsuit because I think if you're getting sued, you shouldn't be talking about a lawsuit. If you're a plaintiff or a defendant, you shouldn't be talking about a lawsuit. But what I do think is that if people are making fun of me on the internet and I want to continue being on the internet, I'm going to say, yeah, look at my boobies. Woo, ha, ha, ha. We're all laughing together, as opposed to kind of being salty about it. How would you react if you were getting all of the stuff that John is getting? How would you feel, and what would you do?
Okay, so from a moral standpoint, though, I think it is kind of mean, to keep making fun of this poor older man. He's just trying to do what he can to make a living, but then people are just constantly making fun of him, criticizing every single little part of his life, but he's putting it out there. So if you want to be a public figure, you have to, go with the flow. This comes with it, that people are going to make fun of you. That happens to both of us, of course.
Yeah.
It's like they're going to say, like, you're a piece of crap and you should get off of YouTube. Stop doing this. You're just a jackass. You just want attention, and make fun of your family.
If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
That's the saying.
You make yourself the subject of discussion, and you sort of want it, right? Because if people didn't talk about him and watch his show, then I'm sure he'd feel even worse and have less income.
Yeah.
But getting back to the whole morals of it, though, I still think it would be sort of nice if people could give him something, as I said to Vince, throw him a bone, here and there. I don't mean it in any sort of perverted way, but give John a bone, because if he didn't keep doing these live streams, which I think are sort of entertaining, and he's made me laugh sometimes, I have to admit. There's some value to it because people keep watching him. So because of him, then you have this whole industry of people who are making good money off of him. So why can't they give him a pizza or deliver him some salads or give him...
He hates it when he gets delivered things.
No, he should love it. He should.
I know, right?
If somebody gave me free good food, good quality food, I would say thank you so much.
You don't want to have to pay for your own pizza anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pizza, I'm trying to lose weight because I have this bet going on. But yeah, if somebody wanted to send something that was actually useful, then that's nice.
I always think that it's an honor to want to, if somebody cares about me enough to watch, to comment, to subscribe, to say something, to send something, it's generally an honor. That is generally a nice thing to do. It can cross a line. I'm not saying that it can't cross a line, but I do think that if John just leaned into it a little bit more, that this whole universe probably wouldn't have existed, because a lot of what people really started having pushback when it comes to John is that he was a jerk about a lot of things. He was mean to a lot of people, and he caused a lot of grief for a lot of people, and that's probably too big of a story for us to get into now. And I respect how much you respect him. I don't entirely agree with you, but
I'm trying to be objective here because I just started getting into this Dabbleverse stuff.
That's how you should be.
Months ago, so I don't know everybody. And can you answer this? Why does he call Shuli the dues payer?
So Shuli pays dues. I got to tell you, Earlier today, I told you that one of my favorite Judy moments was when you told Shuli that he should respect his audience by not slouching in his chair. I really, really, truly enjoyed that. That was like one of my favorite moments. One of my other favorite moments, though, was you asking if he weighed manure because he's called the shit weigher. That's also a really, really great moment. To me, I think that a lot of the nicknames, that's exactly where the lawsuit, to kind of go back into that's the same kind of childishness. That's a hard word to say right now. That's that same kind of like, we're on the playground and we're fighting with each other and we're going to give each other poopy nicknames. I don't get that. These are grown men. So I'm always completely shocked that we have dues payer, that we have shitwear, that we have Lady K, that it used to be Lady Kmart back in the day. Why? Just call each other by each other's names.
Well, it is funny, because sometimes you just have to laugh. So that's why, as funny as these lawsuit papers can be, the downside is that it's really costing money, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that Danny is a Savalos. He's not doing this for free.
I can't imagine that he is.
Yeah. And also, I feel like I'm jumping around. So do you want to lead the topics or shall I jump around?
Go jump around. I'll get us back on track at some point soon.
Okay. Yeah. So Danny Savalos, I'm very impressed with his writing.
Yes.
So great for him. There's a weird thing that he does, though. He never puts periods in things that I'm pretty sure require periods. So it's just a stylistic thing. But whenever he cites case law, he always just says V with no period. And that just like really gets on my nerves.
It drives you crazy.
Yeah, I was a note editor for a law review when I was in law school. And so it's like, I'm pretty sure the Blue Book would say you need to have a period there. And when he cites to certain, like say, is it AD third or something? He also constantly has no period between the A and the D.
I noticed that too.
I'm like, geez, you're a smart guy. Everything looks very well done, but why do you keep, it's like your period button doesn't work or something. So that's just my big nitpick.
I will say he spelled his name right every single time.
Yeah,
so I got to give him that credit.
No, and I was so impressed that he does this total brain dump of all the case law. I wish I had time to read every single thing. Now,
I think he must be a fan of the Dabbleverse because there is no way that he could possibly have pulled all of this information, no matter how much Karl and Shuli are helping him by providing him documentation and providing him, clips of shows and things like that. There is no way that Danny Savalos could have been able to craft this response to the complaint, both the motion to dismiss and the motion to change venue. There's no way that he could have done that as quickly as he did with no prior knowledge of everything. Because it's so much.
No, that just shows what a great attorney he is.
Yeah.
And perhaps he has great paralegals who are, working like crazy. Because I was like, wow, he filed his motion within maybe 12 days or something, his motion to dismiss. I'm like, wow, he's a busy guy. But I've read up on him, and it sounds like he has had many years of experience with media law also. Yeah. So he probably already has like templates and, boilerplate stuff. This is like old hat to him. So he just dumps out like 50 cases where it's on point. So that was very impressive. I've never seen a motion to dismiss where someone dumped so much law and citations into a motion to dismiss. I mean, the last motion to dismiss that I did, which I won last week, I had no case law. I just had like one statute. It's like, Your Honor, this is the statute. I'm sure you're familiar with it. So, yes, or
Well, you did look at some case law relating to this case specifically. So I would love to talk about some of the cases that you were looking at that you think are going to be relevant. And I was taking a peek at them as well to a right of publicity case, because again, that'll kind of give us our backbone for, I don't want to call it the chances, but for what John's lawsuit is. Before we do that, though, I do want to get into a couple of super chats, because I am sure that people have questions for you, Judy. I suspect I'm seeing lots of people saying wonderful things about you in the comments. So I'm sure a couple of people want to say hellos and things. So we have Mike Roch coming in for $10. Merry Christmas, you dolls. Thank you very much. And Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. Nick from Sweden is coming in with 40 and as super sticker. Thank you so much. MJK Rigging, $5 super sticker. Thank you again. Yuo Brins Balls. This show rocks. You two are killing SJ's numbers. There's a lot of people to go around, and everybody can go and hang out and do whatever they want, right? That's great. Tony Baloney, $5. I just want to say hiya and Merry Christmas, ladies. Lucy Typebox World Order. Thank you so much and Merry Christmas. We have Drunk Engineer for $5. You two gals are great. You should probably kiss a little bit to celebrate. I got to tell you, Judy might be the most beautiful woman in the Dabbleverse, so I would be honored.
Yeah, right.
We're too far away from each other. And I'm not flying Judy here in order to go for a date. Yes. Mwah.
Okay.
I love that. That's perfect. Jay Loiterer, $10. Merry Christmas, babes. F. John. I don't mean F. John under any circumstances. Thank you so much and Merry Christmas. Whatnot Chaser coming in for $5. Ha ha ha. What a pile of garbage. Lyndon 49 for $2. Judy, SJ only wants two things from you: money and ... I think
free legal advice.
You gave him the best legal advice that he ever could have gotten when you told him.
Yeah, like zip it. Stop talking about your lawsuit on your live stream while it's not over.
Not be talking about it at all. Not at all. Eugene Oistmiller, $5. Thank you so much. Great show, ladies. Judy, please don't go on John's podcast anymore. It encourages him to continue being creepy. There's been a lot of this creepiness talk lately. Do you think that he understands why he's creepy? I know he was just recently asking, I think both Clay Dabbler and Vince, about if he was creepy or not.
Yeah, he just doesn't get it. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking someone to dinner, but to a complete stranger to say like, hey, I'll fly you over. And I mean, who's so desperate that they're going to go out of state to a complete stranger's place or a hotel? I mean, what the heck? It's not like I'm some high-priced call girl. Jeez.
I don't think he could afford you if you were. Let's be honest. He's got all his money tied up in his legal fees. He's got one lawyer on contingency. The other lawyer, we don't know if that one's on contingency. So he's got other things to deal with.
Yeah.
We have JJ Thrash for $2. Lucy and Judy, please make this a weekly show. I would be truly honored. Judy, I think, is one of the best podcasters out there right now. I've been really enjoying watching AA Legal Focus. You guys should all be going and checking that out. If you are not already subscribed over there, go do that immediately. Florida 49er fan, $5. Hi, Keely. The two of you are not only beautiful, but smart as well. Why, thank you. Whatnot Chaser for $2. Free is the price that John pays. Laughing faces. Raggedy Man coming in with $10. Thank you so much. How is it possible that Tabor Benedict isn't even involved? How possible is it that Tabor Benedict isn't even involved? He seems to specialize in mergers and acquisitions, and his filings are filed with mistakes. Judy, we will not have time to get in today to all of the mistakes that Tabor Benedict has made other than spelling his name incorrectly. But I will tell you that he has filed motions without captions. He has filed documents that he has then immediately said, whoopsie doodle, I didn't mean to file that one. There have been, I believe it's 79 filings in this lawsuit.
That's insane.
That should have approximately 10 filings. There should be a complaint. There should be a summons. There should be a request for judicial intervention, the defendant's motions rebutting any of those things. So the motion to dismiss and the motion to change venue, and then the plaintiff's responses to those. So there should be about 7 filings, and instead there are 79.
It's crazy. Well, do you want to cover your super chats first, or
no? Go ahead, please.
Okay. So I also thought it was weird when I saw that email about how he said, "I'm going on vacation out of the country with the love of my life for the last 9 years, Natalie." I was like, good Lord, this guy's language is so bizarre and florid. It's like he has to be a drama queen wherever he goes. And also, it just seems bizarre because there's got to be some rule there where you have to designate secure leave in advance, because where I practice, there's a rule about that. You have to submit your notice of secure leave at least 90 days in advance. So you can't just surprise people and say, I can't do this because I got a vacation next week. So why isn't he prepared? It's bizarre.
So I think that it's a little bit different in New York. I don't think that we have something equivalent to secured leave. I know it. I as you're describing it, I'm like, that makes so much sense. Why wouldn't we have that? I don't believe that we have that in New York, but typically what happens in New York is that if one of the attorneys is unavailable for a court date, then they send the other attorney a request for a stipulation to adjourn whatever the motion is. Mm-hmm. And, as long as both attorneys agree, then the court will automatically adjourn the date to whatever date everybody agrees upon. If one of the attorneys doesn't agree, then they will send the court a letter. And that is why we got that beautiful, the love of my life, Natalie letter, my favorite letter that has ever been submitted to the court. And typically you would describe the reason that you're unavailable for that date, and saying something like, I'm going on vacation, I'll be out of town, I'll be out of the country. That's perfectly acceptable. Usually the courts are quite accommodating to that in New York State. What's peculiar is describing the reason for leaving to go celebrate an anniversary with the love of your life. Just say, I'm going to be out of town. The courts have no problem with I'm out of town.
Yeah. What's next? He's going to include a picture of Natalie, like Exhibit A. See what a lovely person she is. This is why I got to go. So, yeah. So I thought that was weird. Also, what I thought, many things are weird, but it looks like the attorneys are writing letters directly to the judge. So we can't do that where I practice. You can't have these ex parte, or, judges aren't going to put up with these. They're going to be inundated with letters, emails from everyone. So is that normal?
So every judge has their own part rules in New York State, and each judge has different requirements and legal requirements. Some judges like to get those letters, and they say, yes, send me all the letters. I want to see everything. CC me on every single thing, every single communication that you're getting.
Oh.
And other judges say, I don't want any letters. Never, ever send me a letter. Now, their judge right now, they've been assigned to Justice Cohen, and Justice Cohen, unless I am reading it incorrectly, has said, never send me letters, never, ever, ever send this court letters. So when I started seeing these letters go back and forth, I was gobstopped. I couldn't believe it. And they started from Tabor, and Danny did eventually send one of them. So when Danny did it, I went, either it's okay and I'm misunderstanding and misinterpreting the court's rules, the part rules for this particular judge, or Danny got so fed up with Tabor sending all of these letters that he said, well, I got to say something to the judge. I have to put something in. But I've never seen letters like this ever before in any court case. And the law firm that I work at actually handles quite a few things in New York County where this matter is venued. So it seems very peculiar to me. I've definitely never seen anything like it.
Yeah. And here's another random thing that I thought was worth mentioning, is that Sirius, I'm trying to Google it because I thought I had it up on my computer, his lawsuit. I think that when Savalos mentioned how John should know about that whole civil rights law not applying to people who live out of state because of his old lawsuit. Well, you can't really expect a plaintiff to know these fine details of a prior lawsuit, because usually it's his attorney who's handling all that stuff. So what?
I don't entirely agree with you. Now, I would agree with you if he was pro se, but he has an attorney, and his attorney, Tabor Benedict, and his attorney, Bennett Susser. Both of those guys should know that he previously filed a very similar lawsuit against SiriusXM that he lost. And so if I was an attorney, and again, not all attorneys don't have all the time in the world. So if you're not told all of these things, you might not know it. But if I was Tabor or, Bennett Susser, I would be a little perturbed that my client had not mentioned this previous lawsuit. And if he did mention it, then they should have said, hey, we really should get out in front of this in some way.
Yeah, that's true. But based on what we know of John, I don't think he's into the fine details. Yeah, so he probably just expected his prior attorney to handle things. So that's why I don't fault John or any client for not knowing specific details about why your prior lawsuit got thrown out.
Yeah.
So, plus it was a totally different attorney. But you would think his current attorneys would have asked him, have you been involved in other cases before? So maybe that's just the way Tabor rolls, is just don't ask questions and let's roll with it. So
let's name everybody as a defendant, but also nobody. It'll be great.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit one more super chat, and then I would love to get into these lawsuits that you looked at, because I know you were doing a bunch of research on that. So I would love to hear. But I do want to we have lots more super chats that we will get into in just a little bit, but I want to hit this one specifically because it's from 49er fan for $2. And it says, hi, the beautiful Miss Judy.
Thank you.
So, all right, let's get into, so you were looking at some, what I would call case law. Is that the appropriate term for this? Relating to New York cases, I believe mostly within the New York Court of Appeals, that have to do with civil rights law sections 50 and 51. So would you like to start out by talking about any particular one of these? I'll pull it up on the screen and we can kind of talk about how it applies.
Yeah, either doesn't matter which one you want to start with, but I highlighted some parts. So I hope people appreciate this, because I was like, why am I spending like 12 to 14 hours on this, because I got sucked in. So if you want to do more shows on this, I'm happy to, because I feel like we've invested so much time into this already. What's another legal pleading on top of it?
I was saying that I think I have probably spent, not including time that I have been streaming, I have probably spent over 100 hours on this.
Wow.
It is a lot of reading. It is a lot of information. But I think that these cases that you have pulled up are really great. So this case is, what is this one? Jem versus Ralph Lauren.
Oh, no. And I just called it JEM so I could organize things better. But it's really this model, the plaintiff who sued Ralph Lauren.
And so the basis of this case, I think, was that Ralph Lauren used her image without permission in a documentary that Ralph Lauren was making. And so because it was for advertising or trade purposes, because they used her image in a trailer, that she was claiming that violated New York civil rights law sections 50 and 51. So do you want to talk us through this a little bit?
Oh, well, you're more than welcome to, because you have such a beautiful voice. I'm very jealous. You speak so beautifully. So it's like you could do professional work.
Thank you.
But anyway, if you just want to gloss over the stuff that I highlighted, that's fine. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting that they also slapped her with attorney's fees. Isn't that sad? Sure did. This poor model, she's probably not making too much.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that This is an interesting case because effectively what is happening here is that they said, so the defendant won on this case. Ralph Lauren won in this case. And the reason for that was because the documentary that this model's image was used in was clearly newsworthy. And so they said, nope, you are not allowed to win this lawsuit. And in addition to that, that the plaintiff was going to get hit with those anti-SLAPP fees and costs, which meant that the model actually had to pay the attorney's fees, which again, I am sure were not inexpensive. I'm sure that Ralph Lauren was hiring a Danny Savalos level attorney who was quite expensive for everything.
Yeah, big firm lawyers.
Yes. Yeah. So this one kind of exemplifies that profit doesn't matter, but content does. And I'll just read some of these highlighted sections that you have here. So it says fashion model brought action under section of civil rights law prohibiting the use of, quote, the name, portrait, or picture of any living person for advertising or trade purposes without the person's consent against the fashion designers, corporation, and media company that aired documentary and trailer about the designer on its television network and internet streaming service, which featured the model's images. The Supreme Court granted the defendant's motion for failure to state a cause of action and granted media companies' motion for attorney's fees under the anti-SLAPP law. Now, you mentioned this earlier, actually, the failure to state a cause of action when we were talking specifically about Kate Meany. Can you kind of describe to people a little bit exactly what failure to state a cause of action means? Because I feel like that's kind of the legal mumbo jumbo that sometimes people get a little bit lost in.
Yeah, it's a way to, from the get-go, try to get rid of a frivolous lawsuit. So you're saying that even if whatever the plaintiff is claiming in the complaint is true, it still doesn't amount to any sort of legally valid claim. So you can't sue over it. For example, one of my cases that got voluntarily dismissed recently had to do with a gay couple that broke up, and one person sued the other because he wanted visitation with the dog.
Of course.
Like, this is like the most ridiculous. It was pro se, of course. Like a ridiculous lawsuit where you can't sue to have visitation with someone's dog. So, I mean, the guy included other stuff, but, it's clearly he was just, hurt feelings because he wanted to see the person's dog. So if it is something it's not a legal claim, you can't sue people for something, then the defense can file this motion to hopefully get rid of the case pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, I referred to it as legal mumbo jumbo, but that is what makes attorneys so unique, is that you understand the processes and procedures of what is required in order to be able to define these causes of actions. And that is why we hire attorneys to do all of this hard work when we need an attorney, because it is complicated and you have to make sure that you are doing things procedurally in the way that the courts require them to be done. Yeah. And so that is definitely a case here.
Yeah. And can I say something else? But so I don't want it to seem like, oh my God, this is a totally frivolous, stupid lawsuit, because who am I to judge? I'm not a copyright specialist, or I don't practice in New York. So maybe if someone paid me to do 50 hours of legal research, I could have a better, stupid opinion on this. But, I think the part about them charging people to hear his phone call with Kate, or phone calls, that's what sort of first makes me think, maybe that is a cause of action, because that just doesn't seem right. But on the other hand, maybe they did provide something extra, like commentary, maybe there is something more to this, whatever you call it, Dabble House.
Yeah. So the question becomes, are people paying in order to see John's content, or are they paying in order to see Karl and Shuli's commentary on the content? And I think that that's where it really becomes interesting. And that's where a lot of these YouTube related lawsuits become so interesting, because who are you paying to see? Are you paying to see the commenter, or are you paying to see the original content creator? And that's where fair use comes in. And that's where all of this really, really interesting stuff comes in. I completely agree with you. You just said that you don't think that this is a completely frivolous lawsuit. And I have been accused of being very biased about this lawsuit. And I probably am, because I think that Karl and Shuli are wonderful humans, and I hate the fact that they are getting sued. They are my friends. I have not made any qualms about that. I am wholeheartedly on their side, not just because I am their friend, but also because of the paperwork that I've read. That being said, I don't think it's an entirely frivolous lawsuit. I don't think it's entirely frivolous. I think that there is some merit buried somewhere in those couch cushions. It's like when I was a child and I would dig for the change that fell out of my father's pocket in the couch cushions. You know, there might be some little teeny tiny glimpse of something. The unfortunate part is that it was never laid out in any way that makes any sense to me. And so if there was ever any good cause of action, if there was any good claim, I don't see that in the complaint. And that's where I get lost within the lawsuit. And that's where, even though I've been accused of being biased, I don't think that I necessarily am, because I'm not seeing that information being laid out in a logical and procedural way.
Okay. Well, also, can we show that other case law? Because there is at least one case that mentioned making money off of someone.
Yes. So are you talking about the Christopher Porco versus Lifetime case?
It could have been. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
So I believe that it is. I'm going to pull that one up, but I'm going to tell you a little story about this case.
Okay.
Before I let you talk about it. I was actually at this murder trial.
No way.
So I was very excited when you sent me this case. Let me give everybody a little bit of background about this one.
Sure.
So this is a case where a gentleman is the incorrect term, a guy named Christopher Porco and his mother actually sued Lifetime, the television channel, because they used his likeness and his story without his consent. Now, the reason that they used his story is because they created a Lifetime original movie about the fact that he left the University of Rochester in the middle of the night and went and axe murdered his parents. His mother survived that attack, which is why his mother is actually one of the plaintiffs also in this lawsuit.
Yeah, that's so weird that she's a plaintiff with him.
Oh, yeah, it sure is. I don't know if you looked at any photographs of her face. I will not be pulling them up right now.
No.
But let me tell you, she is very horribly disfigured from his attempt at axe murdering her. The reason that I am so deeply familiar with this case is because I was friends with Christopher Porco. So I went to University of Rochester around the same time as him, and I was friends with a lot of his frat brothers, and so I sometimes met with him. And so I went to the murder trial, and it's a very crazy case that is very interesting. I would highly recommend looking into it. It is frequently called the Lizzie Borden of men sort of cases. But the case that you pulled up here relates to him while he's in jail with the assistance of his mother, actually suing Lifetime about making a story about making a movie about this event. And it didn't go well for them.
Well, can I ask you, why did you go to the trial? Were you supporting him?
No. All of my friends were subpoenaed. There were many people subpoenaed for that. And as I mentioned, he was in a fraternity. And so because they were all frat brothers and everybody was completely crazy, everybody decided to go and treat a murder trial a little bit like a frat party. If you ever have a chance to read the transcripts of this court case, listening to a bunch of frat brothers testify in a murder trial is, again, quite interesting. So I went largely as moral support for my friends who were going. I was not subpoenaed. I did not have to testify, but most of my friends did.
So what did you think of him when you knew him?
Oh, he was horrible. He was he was this guy in college where he had like all these like side hustles. He was selling, do you know what Lucy cigarettes are? So like if you have just
No.
like an individual cigarette and you want to sell just individual cigarettes, which is incredibly illegal in New York State, he would sell Lucy cigarettes in order for people to avoid taxes. And he was not a great guy. I don't think anybody thought that he was a great guy ever. And then he did this. So,
and why did he kill his father?
That's a great question. So one of the reasons that so many people were subpoenaed was because they were trying to establish a case. The state was trying to establish a case that he, that the reason that he did this was for money. So he successfully killed his father. He attempted to kill his mother, but did not succeed with that. And they basically said his parents had told him that they were going to cut him off. And because they told him that they were going to cut him off, he said, nope, they're out of here. And his mother initially accused him of all of this and then reneged on everything and said, no, I support my son, which is perhaps one of the most tragic stories that I have ever heard in my life.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So interesting that you knew him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a fun little background fact. But let's talk about this lawsuit. So again, this is when Christopher Porco and his mother go and sue Lifetime because they used his image and likeness in order to make a movie. And what ended up happening was that because the film dealt with newsworthiness and real world crime, they made it clear that it was a dramatization and not the literal truth. And therefore, because of that, Lifetime won this lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Any other?
I mean, that kind of makes sense. I mean, people can make documentaries and talk about these things, especially if you're in this big murder case.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Did I highlight anything else in that case?
Let me pull it up right here. Even with my glasses on, I still can't see things well. So let me pull it up here. Okay. We have, okay. Plaintiff who was a convicted murderer and his mother brought an action against producer of a film based on the circumstances surrounding the murder and the trial, alleging violation of their statutory right of privacy via the commercial, nonsensical, and use of their names, likeness, and personalities in the film and related promotional material. You also highlighted here, the film addresses matters of public interest through a blend of fact and fiction that was readily acknowledged and did not mislead viewers into believing that its related depictions of the plaintiffs were true. And that the use of the plaintiffs' names and likenesses in the promotional and advertising materials for the film did not violate their statutory right of publicity. We have a couple of other things highlighted here. Let me scooch over to the next page. Okay. I'm a little slow at these things. Oh, one back. We also have here, as a result of both the narrow scope of statutory provisions and the need to avoid fatal conflict in the free dissemination of thoughts, ideas, newsworthy events, and matters of public interest guaranteed by the First Amendment, the provisions of the statutory right to privacy do not apply to reports of newsworthy events or matters of public interest, even if reports were produced with profit in mind. And I think that is very relevant there to John's lawsuit.
Yeah, I think so. That's why when I saw it, I was like, aha, we got to highlight that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess what that's saying, and I know that I saw this in a lot of Danny Savalos's paperwork when it came to his responses to the complaint that Stuttering John and his attorney Tabor filed, we're saying it doesn't matter if they were trying to turn a profit or not. That's not what the law is trying to protect you against necessarily. We have these newsworthy exceptions. We have these satire exceptions. We have these comedy and parody exceptions. And that is definitely very, very unique.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let me pull up the last suit that you pulled here. Let's see if I can find it.
Thank you. I like your glasses, by the way. They look sort of like the glasses I just got recently with gold rims, but my vision is so bad. Yeah, my vision is terrible, though. So if I wore them, they'd look like huge Coke bottles. So I was like, okay, I'll wear contacts tonight.
I'll tell you what, I need to get contacts, but I just constantly get the lighting glare in the glasses, so I'm trying to deal with that tonight. We're
Is
we're
that
seeing how
why
I'm
you
doing.
turn your head so the
Yes.
reflection?
Yeah, well, also
doesn't-
listen, I'm just following Karl's lead. He never looks into the camera. We're always talking about this. My monitor is over here. I recently changed my setup and I didn't do a great job of it. But one day I'll learn. One day
Yeah,
I'll learn.
it's fine.
All right, so this last one that we have here is going to be
Stefano.
this is another case that involves a professional model, if I remember correctly. So this one, it says that a magazine can publish a person's photo without their permission if the photo is used in newsworthy or public interest content. So let's go ahead and read some of the things that you highlighted here. Boop, boop, boop. Let me get that. I have 4 monitors, so that's why sometimes I look all the way over here.
Wow, so high tech.
I know, I'm trying really hard. It's because I work remote sometimes for my day job, so I also need them for pulling up a million pieces of paperwork.
Oh, well,
All right,
by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what kind of cases do you typically work on?
That's a great question. I practice in very, very boring types of law, so most of it is real estate related. So this is also outside of my wheelhouse. But obviously practicing in New York, I understand a little bit more of the nuances that come with New York state law and at least the procedural filings. So the thing that I am really familiar with when it comes to lawsuits is first we do this, then we do this, and then we do this. And that is all the same within real estate as it is within civil rights laws. So shockingly similar, actually, in New York state.
Cool.
Yeah, which is great. I do the boring stuff, but who cares?
Yeah, that's why we have
That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's why we're so interested in this, because this is actually interesting.
I tell all of my coworkers, I'm like, this is my favorite lawsuit because it's so interesting. Every moment of it is interesting for me.
Yeah.
All right, so we have here the New York Court of Appeals held that defendant's publication of plaintiff's picture was protected by the newsworthiness exception. So again, this is one of the things that Danny Savalos is kind of counteracting Stuttering John's claims with. He is saying John is newsworthy. John admits that he is newsworthy because he admits that he is a public figure, and therefore the sections 50-51 don't apply in these scenarios. You've also highlighted here that these terms should not be construed to apply to publications concerning newsworthy events or matters of the public. And then we have on the next page here, we have recently noted that this exception should be liberally applied. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you felt that that was noteworthy?
Yeah, because once again, I think the overarching public policy is that people should be able to discuss things and give commentary. So if we let people be able to sue and squelch discussions and sharing of ideas, then you have this very rigid society where you have to watch every single thing that you say or else risk getting sued.
So do you think that in this case, in the in Stuttering John's lawsuit, do you think that Karl and Shuli were within the newsworthiness exception?
Oh yeah. I mean, because newsworthy, I mean, who's to determine whether it's newsworthy or not? But clearly people want to hear about him. And he's a public figure. He's a celebrity. Or he even said so in his prior lawsuit. I'm a celebrity with whatever millions of people who know my name. So, just like People magazine can publish gossip or, write articles about celebrities. So why can't people on YouTube talk about celebrities too?
I could not agree with you more about that. I could not agree with you more. Let me read this last little highlighted point that you have here. A contrary rule would be unreasonably and unrealistically, a contrary rule would unreasonably and unrealistically limit the exception to nonprofit or purely altruistic organizations, which are not only or even the primary source of information concerning newsworthy events and matters of public interest. That is also a really great point.
Yeah.
I am loving that you pulled those articles. I couldn't believe when you pulled that Christopher Porco.
Yeah, what a coincidence that you knew the person and you went to his trial. Jeez.
I wasn't there the night that he did it, but many of my college friends were there on the night that he left and
That's
to
horrible.
go do it. Yeah.
Were you ever did you ever get creepy vibes from him?
I only knew him a little bit. I only met him kind of, at parties and little things, but I did not really know him all of that well. But I never had any interest in being friends with him. We'll say it that way. So I certainly was not loving it. I don't know. It's not for me, shall we say. Not for me.
That's right.
Let me ask you one more question that I'm just kind of curious about, and then we'll hit some more super chats. And I know, Judy, that you were looking to not stay on too long tonight. I will have more clips after you have to head out. But I wanted to ask you, I wanted to kind of pick your brain about just one more thing before I let you get out of here, which is that I'm wondering, I know you usually practice divorce law. Do you ever have to have witness affidavits with the type of law that you practice, or not so much?
Oh, yes. And actually, I would say divorce is probably 70% of my practice these days. But at previous firms and, when I was growing my practice, I did all sorts of other civil litigation, such as employment discrimination, sexual harassment, some workers' comp, SSDI appeals, malpractice, medical malpractice, legal malpractice. So tons of stuff like breach of contract, business disputes, some real estate disputes, defamation. So I do have some, 25 years of experience doing different types of civil litigation, just not this type of specific case. So before people get off and complain and say like, she's just a divorce attorney, what the hell?
You can tell them to shut up.
Yeah, it's like you get what you pay for. This is not legal advice.
I'm thinking about going to North Carolina to get married just so that I can hire you as my divorce attorney. I don't think that anybody is questioning your ability to lawyer.
I do prenups too.
I love prenups are my favorite thing in the whole world. I love getting married as much as I love getting divorced. So a prenup is a necessity.
Oh, well, I hope it wasn't a terrible experience for you.
No.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Should we address these super chats since Vince is always telling me you got to address those super chats?
We do have to address the super chats. Let me ask you this one more question because again, I know you're
yeah, I can stay on a little. It's just hard for me to talking. So
all right. Well, in that case, let me hit some of the super chats so you can have a little bit of a rest in your voice, and then I'll ask you that question afterwards. All right, let's see. Where were we? I have no idea. I am so good at this stuff. It's wonderful. We have Johnny Knoxville who says, "You two are good together. Love you both. Skol." We have Raymond Purbutt, or the wonderful Raper Butt, $5. Hi, Judy. Legally speaking, would you agree that the Quickies with Lucy are incredibly well produced?
Yes, definitely. I'm very impressed with your production quality. So do you do it all by yourself or do you have someone helping you?
Well, I have to be honest with you. This question from Raper Butt is a bit of a leading question because he is the producer of the Quickies with Lucy. So he helps me with writing the scripts, but I do everything else. I do all the video editing. I do, I add all the clips. I spend a lot of time on them, which is why sometimes they are few and far between. But
they're so funny. Like when you put in clips from other shows or movies or whatever, it's hilarious. So great job.
I never pride myself as a comedian, but I am generally very proud of those Quickies with Lucy. They have been really fun to work on.
It's great.
Thank you. We have Maury Often for $2. Miss Judy, please blow a kiss to
Didn't
Lucy.
I
I'm
do
gonna
that
blow yet
already?
another. Yes.
Okay.
Always worth another.
Okay, thank you.
Michael P., the wonderful Michael P. Go Bills, $5. You should both flash for a Bills win. Heart you, Lucy. Go Bills. Go Bills, Michael P. Congratulations about this past Sunday. I think the Bills won. Whatnot Chaser for $5. Miss Judy, have you talked to a shrink after that animal John made it known he's attracted to you?
No, because, I mean, as people know, I'm old. So once you get older, it's like, oh my God, somebody actually flattered me. Like, for example, last year, this schluppy looking Hispanic guy at Wendy's drive-thru,
It was
he was
John.
like, no, it wasn't John. but the guy like gave me my order and he was like, oh, you're so beautiful. And I was like, oh, thank you. But
Yes.
say 20, 30 years ago, I would have been so pissed off. I'd be like, what the hell? You know, can't I just get my damn food and not be sexually harassed? But again, now, you know, when you get older, it's like, oh, well, you know,
I gotta tell you,
so-and-so finds me attractive, you know.
I bartended into my late 30s, and part of the reason for that is because people would go nice ass, and I would go thank you.
Yeah.
Because again, you're not getting it as much anymore. I like the cat calls now; they're wonderful.
It's like, please, is someone going to catcall me?
I know. Hello.
Like, hey guys.
We got Adam Bush for coming in for $10. John devoted an episode to reviewing his wedding tapes with a fellow podcaster, Monique. Why do you think he will not walk through his divorce filings with you, Judy? A great question, Adam.
Well, it's probably because it's too emotional, or perhaps he's angry at whatever the person put in there. Because there's a lot of mudslinging that goes on with divorce litigation, and some things are not true. So why would he want to embarrass himself? So I can understand.
The funniest divorce proceeding that I ever saw was somebody claiming that their wife was throwing onions at them. So there are funny things and weird things in divorce filings. But yeah. I do think, you know, I mean, at this point, his divorce is quite a few years ago. I would talk about my divorce filings. I don't have any problem with that. You know, I think as long as things are not contentious, which he said that they weren't to you, he told you that everything was happy and healthy. It is a little bit peculiar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm assuming he would be too embarrassed to talk about it, or it just riles him up to see this stuff.
Yeah, you might be right. Ellen to chat for $2. Miss Judy.
Okay, thanks.
Whatnot Chaser for $2. Ava is a member of the Taliban. Oh, I didn't know that. I ate Shuli's cum, and I hate the fact that I just said that for $2. Thank you so much. Miss Judy, me love you, wrong time. Skull. Okay. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Abe Froman for $2. Judy, isn't it cute when Lucy uses big words? TWO. Tukey. Ellen to chat for $5. Lucy and Miss Judy does just hurt my feelings. I'll settle for $1.5 million. Ball is in your court, ladies. I'll be waiting by my mailbox. Thank you. We'll be sending that money immediately. Virgin Ray DeVito for $2. Judy is already a Dabbleverse legend. I agree. Many people have called you Rookie of the Year, but I think that you have been refreshing, graceful, hilarious, very candid, and an absolutely amazing producer of content, as well as an addition to other people's shows. So I think you're truly, truly wonderful.
Thank you.
Whatnot Chaser for $2. Oh, Ava is a Muslim mutant. We're learning so much today, Judy. Joe Midnight Spook Show, $2. 143, my ladies, respect. Most wrote for 20 Mexican dollars. Mexican? I don't know what those letters are. I'm going to go with that. I'm a genius Mexican. Over here. I went to University of Rochester with an axe murderer. I don't know how anything works in the world. Percent of slap LOLsuit sticking. How forked is John? TWO. SLAPP lawsuits are very hard to win in New York State. And I will say that, Judy, did you do any research about how frequently people actually win these SLAPP lawsuits?
No, I didn't.
It is hard to do. And I will tell you, I have not looked at a ton of these, but I think that Karl and Shuli do have a very good chance at this one. I think that the judge, in my opinion, the judge is very likely to dismiss this case because it has become so excessive and it has gone so far off of the path when it comes to things like right of publicity. It is, and right of privacy. It is no longer talking about those things. And I think that the courts in New York County get very persnickety about the idea that somebody is wasting their times. They have enough on their docket and they don't want more lawsuits on there, and they are going to slap somebody down if they're wasting the court's time.
Yeah.
So,
well, as we noticed, that poor model did get assessed the attorney's fees. But the whole question is it going to be collectible? Because from what I hear in Florida, they have that homestead exemption. So let's say even if he did own a home in Florida, then, it's not like the defendants could get at it.
I don't actually know. So I agree with you. I don't if Karl and Shuli do win on the anti-SLAPP, I don't know that they'll ever see any of that money. I don't know John's financial situation. Maybe you know a little bit better than me. And I think you said the exact correct word. If he owned a home in Florida, I don't believe that he does own a home in Florida based on some deed transfers. But I don't know that they would ever actually see any of that money. It's, effectively the same thing as having a judgment declared against somebody in a court case and them never being able to pay it. That's just a civil lawsuit, right?
And so, of course, this is, again, hypothetical because I don't know for sure. Like, what's the validity of the lawsuit? I have no clue. But if it were a frivolous lawsuit that gets dismissed, that's great. But you still would feel bad for defendants who had to spend all this money defending themselves and then maybe getting some paper judgment or an award of attorney's fees that you can't collect on.
I think that at this point, if I had to guess, and this is entirely a guess, if I had to guess, at this point, Karl and Shuli probably just want it to be over with. I mean, don't get me wrong. Who wouldn't want to be afforded or awarded attorney fees in a situation like this? But, we were talking about in the beginning of when you and I started talking, who doesn't like sleep? They're not sleep. I'm sure that they are both much more strong-willed than I am. But I would not sleep a single night if I was getting sued. I wouldn't. I just wouldn't,
I've defended a bunch of frivolous lawsuits over the years, and people are constantly so stressed out. They're like, why is this lasting so long? Like, it's caused problems with my relation. Well, this is what people say, that it causes problems because they're in a bad mood. They're constantly stressed out. They have to waste time talking with the attorneys. And, luckily it doesn't seem like at this point they have to go to court because, most of these motions just have to do with attorneys. But, it's just stress that hangs over you. For example, I got sued several times recently by my former divorce client's crazy ex-wife. And it's public record. And I knew it was totally frivolous because she was trying to say that I defamed her in court from what I said as legal argument to throw out her cases, which of course is protected speech. But even though I knew it was frivolous, it still stressed me out. Thinking like, oh, Lord, what's she going to file next? And, then I have to type something up. And she was just filing all sorts of crap left and right. And, maybe you would say Tapper is doing the same thing because it does sound pretty excessive to have 70-something filings in a lawsuit.
What I used to always joke about when I first started doing these long format episodes of Lucy Does Dabbleverse, what I always used to joke about was I think that Karl and Shuli have a great case. I think that this lawsuit will likely be dismissed. However, if the judge woke up and didn't get his morning blowy, maybe he's not gonna feel that way, and that is sometimes what it is. And if somebody loses a lawsuit because the judge woke up and didn't get their morning blowy, or woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or whatever the thing is, it really can impact what the ruling is. And if something has to go up to the Court of Appeals, that makes it even more stressful. And I wouldn't want to be dealing with that.
And expensive too, because you have to pay for an appellate attorney. They're not going to do it for free.
No.
Here's an idea.
Yes.
There are plenty of law schools with legal clinics where they have a professor who is supervising the law students. So perhaps they could find some sort of legal clinic with a law school that has some First Amendment bent or whatever, where a professor might be very interested in this type of lawsuit.
And as we've both said, it's a very interesting lawsuit. I don't know that I would want to work on it for free, but I guess I am sort of. I don't know. That's a hard thing to actually define at this point in my life.
This is all just commentary. And I too want to bring it back to that Sirius XM lawsuit.
Yes. Absolutely.
The reason the case was thrown out was not because he was trying to sue under Florida law, or it wasn't because of the whole state thing. I think it was because they said federal copyright law preempted the case. So that was something that I was kind of confused about first when I saw the motion to dismiss. So I looked up the case and read the decision. So, I mean, it's great because all you have to do these days is Google it yourself.
I know.
But you can see the case decision online, and it talks about copyright law.
Yeah.
So just wanted to mention that.
Very interesting.
But we did want to talk about the affidavits, and I'm curious to know, what was your role in doing that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there were two sets of affidavits that were filed by witnesses in this court case. So when Danny Savalos filed his motion to dismiss, he had witness affidavits. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. It was for his motion to change venue. Pardon me. When he filed his motion to change venue, he filed witness affidavits, and those witnesses all supported the argument that the venue should be changed to Rochester, New York, as opposed to New York County. Now, these two places, for people who don't know how New York State works, is about a 5.5-hour drive between these two places. And the argument in the motion to change venue is that this should be held in Rochester because one of the defendants lives in Rochester. And in addition to that, because one of the events was held in Rochester. So the most applicable court for overseeing this would be Rochester, New York, the Monroe County courts. In order to support that motion, Danny included witness affidavits, and I was one of those witnesses. In addition to that, other people who lived in Rochester, New York, who were participating in these events, so in the events Dabble House and DabbleCon 2, they all also submitted witness affidavits. And each one of our affidavits described why it would be inconvenient for us to travel to New York City. So, for example, because I work at a law firm, and even though I sometimes work remote, I frequently need to go into the office because I supervise people. And so because I need to be physically in an office, it would be challenging for me to midweek travel somewhere that is either a 5.5-hour drive away or a 1.5-hour plane flight away in order to be able to participate in any questioning relating to this trial. And each one of the witnesses for these affidavits submitted different explanations of why they needed or why they would prefer the court case to not be held in New York County, 5.5 hours away. In response to that motion to dismiss, Tabor as well as John submitted, opposition to it. And they also included affidavits of witnesses that said, no, we need this to be held in New York County. Now, I don't believe that you looked at any of those affidavits. Am I
No.
correct about that?
No, although I'm curious now. It's like, where is it? Because I did quickly scroll through and read the last parts of that huge PDF file.
Huge PDF that I gave you. Well,
Yeah.
let me pull one of those witness affidavits up. I can probably find it on my computer because I save absolutely everything
Yeah,
here.
you're so
But
organized. That's impressive.
thank you.
Yeah.
While I am pulling that up, can you tell me a little bit about when you are trying to get an affidavit from somebody? So when you need an affidavit to support a motion that you're working on, and a witness affidavit specifically, what kind of information do you request that they place into that affidavit?
Things that they have personal knowledge of. So from what I heard from your videos, it sounds like he had lots of hearsay in his witness affidavits. And of course, there have been plenty of times that I help people type up their affidavits because in a lot of cases, the potential witnesses are not good at writing, or
Yes.
they're kind of disorganized, or if I ask them to type up something, it'll have tons of misspellings and grammatical errors.
No
and
periods, incorrectly spelled names.
Focus on totally irrelevant things. So, it's okay to kind of help people type up the affidavit, but at the very least, you shouldn't have people saying the exact same things in the affidavits.
I think that is what is so peculiar about these affidavits, and I've just pulled one example of them up that Tabor submitted in support of his motion, these witness affidavits. Every single one says exactly the same thing. They all say, I am friends with John. They all say, I have personal knowledge about this information, but it's a copy and paste job. And to me, I know that John sometimes repeats himself, and I know that sometimes, he is describing the same things to different people, but it strikes me as very bizarre to copy and paste witness affidavits because every person is going to have their own unique experience, right? That's kind of what we always, I'm just pulling this up here so that I can read a little bit of it. Hang on one second.
Yeah, it's really hard to see it on the screen
that.
where I'm looking. So, yeah.
Okay, so
did the person really have his last name on it?
This is a great question. So there has been a lot of discussion about the redaction of names. And actually, the reason that I selected this particular affidavit to pull up is because on this particular affidavit, the witness's name is redacted. You are correct. It says affidavit of Daniel. And you can see in the green highlighted section there, it says Daniel, and then there is a blank white spot. What's interesting about some of these affidavits is that on some of them, the names are not redacted. They tried to redact names and did not successfully do that. And if I had that happen to me, I would be very upset about that. So I specifically chose one that is properly redacted. This witness has chosen to have their name redacted, which I think is perfectly acceptable. And it says that I have a background and purpose. It says I am an adult and I am a longtime friend of plaintiff John Melendez. Now, John's mother also executed one of these witness affidavits, and she also says I am an adult and a longtime friend of plaintiff John Melendez, which again, a peculiar thing for a mother to say. She also says, actually, everybody in these affidavits talks about that there was no consent ever given. At no point did Mr. Melendez authorize Miss Meany or anyone to record their private phone calls or to share those recordings with the defendants. That is a very definitive statement that I don't know how Daniel could possibly have personal knowledge of. How could he know that John never authorized Miss Meany in order to record those private phone calls?
Yeah.
And
I feel like this is still kind of like a side issue. It's like, who cares?
Yes.
The lawsuit is against Karl and Shuli. So what's all this side drama about Kate Meany?
Yes. In addition to that, this again talks about, so here, let me skip down a little bit. Here, let me skip over to the next page here. It also mentions things like he being John, informed me at the time that the defendants had made extortionate threats, specifically threatened to publicly release embarrassing recordings of his conversations unless he complied with their demands. I don't think that John went around and told his mother that. I mean, that just seems like a really bizarre thing to do. And also, none of it makes any sense to me, because any extortionate threats that were made in conjunctions with the obtaining of the tapes have nothing to do with right of publicity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it just seems a little strange. The whole verbiage looks very clear that an attorney typed it all up and just said, hey, we signed this to help support the plaintiff.
And so there's about 5 of these affidavits that look exactly the same. This is what I find so peculiar about it, is that, again, when Danny had us execute witness affidavits, he requested that we specifically fill in information. And most of our affidavits are actually handwritten, where we are describing what was happening in our own, not only words, but also handwriting. So, for example, the reason that I was unable to attend any court conferences in Manhattan is completely different than the reason that producer Chris is unable to attend any conferences in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Those are 2 completely separate reasons. Here we're saying things like, I personally observed Mr. Melendez's emotional state once he learned that his private communications had likely been surreptitiously recorded and leaked. He was distraught, angry, and shocked at the violation of his trust. On multiple occasions in late 2024, Mr. Melendez expressed to me that he couldn't believe a friend would secretly tape him. He emphatically stated that he never agreed to any recording or release of his conversations. His genuine reaction was one of outrage and hurt, a reaction completely at odds with the notion that he ever intended or welcomed such recordings.
Okay.
I would never say those words.
Yeah, it seems like that florid language that Tabor Benedict is fond of.
Yeah,
but this
I would never.
I mean, once again, it gets to kind of like moral, ethical issues where that is mean of Kate Meany to have recorded him and then given those recordings so that people could have a big laugh at his expense. So I do sort of feel sorry for John. Wouldn't we all feel so embarrassed if someone you thought was your friend, or maybe he thought she was sort of like a girlfriend, just
the
turned
moral
around and
issue?
did that?
I completely agree. Sometimes I become at odds with the moral issue. I think it has nothing to do with the legal issue, though, and I think you identified that as well. But the tapes, I suspect that you have not heard them.
No.
John is not good on those tapes, but either is Kate. She doesn't portray herself to be this great person. She embarrassed herself as much as she embarrassed him. Now,
really, tell me more. This sounds interesting.
I will probably get some shit for saying that. I'm gonna be honest with you. She did not embarrass him as much as he embarrassed himself, but she definitely seemed like she was not of sound mind. She seemed ditzy. She wasn't always entirely put together. And so the fact that she released them, she probably knew that people were going to also recognize that. Now, that's a whole separate issue, but I don't know that she was looking to make herself look good by giving out these tapes.
But could it be that she was deliberately acting because she knew she was recording it so she could hand it over to Shuli? So
you might be right about that.
Maybe we can't be too hard on her because she was probably laughing to herself and be like, let me say this, because she's a comedian, isn't she?
I am a huge fan of Kate Meany. I think that she has done some wonderful work for all of us. I'm just saying, if I had done that, I would not have released those tapes because I wouldn't want people to hear me acting like she did.
Like, what did she say? I'm so interested now. Can you give an
lot
example?
of it, she has a very specific laugh that I am not very good at imitating, but it's like kind of like a very like that's a horrible imitation of it whatsoever. I'll never do that attempted fake laugh ever again, so as to not embarrass myself. Again, I would not have released the tapes. But she really seemed like she was drinking or on drugs or again just very out of it. And there are moments that I feel like she's leading him into things, but there are plenty of moments where I think that she is just being goofy and silly and she's just enjoying having a weird wacky conversation while having a wild night herself.
Okay, but she knew she was recording it, obviously.
Yeah,
so I'd give her
absolutely.
some grace and say that perhaps she was acting or overacting because she knew people would hear it.
And again, I don't disagree with you. On a moral level, this is a challenging thing. I certainly had moral conflicts with some of these things. That being said, I don't like. I have moral conflicts with many, many things that exist in the Dabbleverse. It is challenging to say, should we make fun of people? But I also go to bed and sleep very well at night.
Yeah, because I mean, if it's for comedy's sake, then it's like, well, we can laugh at things that give us entertainment. What's wrong with that?
And that is the whole point of the legal standards within New York State about the right of privacy. The entire point of those legal standards is that we have these exceptions where we say if it is newsworthy, if it is of public interest, if it is in commentary, if it is in criticism, opinion, satire, parody, any of these things, we are allowed to still do what we're doing. And, that is where the crux of the issue is when it comes to the lawsuit itself.
Yeah, but I'm still curious though, with this paying money to listen to the calls, was there more to it than just playing the phone call recordings?
Oh, absolutely. It was commentary, it was parody the entire time. There was at least in the portions of that I have heard and the portions that I participated in, there was never listening to any portion of any tape for more than a few seconds without making tons and tons of commentary on it. I never heard anything like that. And so I think it relates back to that first lawsuit that we were looking at that you brought up, which was the Ralph Lauren lawsuit, where, they said something to the effect, I can't even remember what it was, but it was, the newsworthiness exception was completely at play there because it was a matter of public interest. And so including that model's photograph was
part of the news.
Yeah, it was part of it. Yeah. And I think the reason that people paid for that event was not necessarily for John. I think that it was for Karl and Shuli because I think that people think that Karl and Shuli are funny. I don't think that. I think they're both idiots, obviously. But I think that a lot of people find them really, really funny and they like the content that they're working on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but like I said, once again, from a moral standpoint, is it right to make fun of this poor guy who's down on his luck? And it seems like he could use some help. So, that's why it gets me when people are saying, well, stop giving drunkie money. Stop with the super chats. It's like, well, you're enjoying it, aren't you? If you're enjoying it, then maybe you should support him.
So, Judy,
give him some money.
I think this is a very big conversation and we've kind of veered off the lawsuit a little bit today, which I love, but also it's such a big conversation. And I don't want to shortchange the conversation about, the tapes and also about things like what John's actions were in comparison to what Kate's actions were relating to that, and why people say things like stop giving Drunky money. I would love to have you back on to kind of dive more into those aspects of the lawsuit and
Sure.
kind of that piece of
Yeah.
history of the Dabbleverse. I think that would be really interesting for everybody. So I'm going to officially invite you to come back and join me again,
Sure.
and maybe we can get into
Sure,
all of
this
that.
is definitely fun. Like I told
Good.
Vince, it's like sometimes you just get kind of like grabbed in, like it's a real life soap opera, and you start wondering like what's going to happen next, or
I can't
I mean,
stop.
it is kind of sad in some respect. I think I need to go down and spend time with my family, given some family issues that have been happening, and it's almost Christmas and stuff. So yeah, but it's definitely been really interesting. Plus, from a legal perspective, it's a good learning experience. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I do think that a lot of the context of what happened with the tapes and how Kate Meany recorded them and things that John said to her during those tapes, and his reactions to that, for example, doing things like calling her mother as a form of retaliation. There's so much history. It's so much happened with all of that, but it does lead into the context of the lawsuit, and it does kind of get us all to where we are today. So I would love to kind of go through all of that aspect with you at some
we
point.
have to the super chats. Vince says, hey,
We do.
can't
We do.
no super
You're teaching me well. You're teaching me well. All right, let's
Yeah.
get back to some super chats here. So we have BMC for $10. Judy, John body shaming Shuli's minor child. I know this is new to you, but there's a reason why people feel the way they do about John. I think you're awesome, by the way. This is an example of some of the things that John has done that make people feel a little bit less sympathetic to him.
Oh.
So that is, I'm sure there will be more examples of that in these super chats. Thank you, BMC. J4's New York for $5. How much weight will the court give to Stuttering John's claim that several of his YouTube statements were, quote, performative, and court should credit current opposite claims?
Yeah.
This is interesting. Go ahead, Judy.
Yes. So this is where I started thinking these back and forth arguments sound more appropriate for a motion for summary judgment filing as opposed to a motion to dismiss. Yeah, because it is kind of unusual based on my experience in my states that I've been licensed in a motion to dismiss to say that, but there's so little evidence, or there's no evidence, so he can't possibly win, so toss it out right now. But here, there does seem to be some sort of issue as to material fact as to whether he did tell different stories as to whether he knew Kate was recording him and stuff. So, I don't know, but I still think if the law is on the defendant's side, then the motion to dismiss would be granted. So we don't even have to get into this whole, just lie on his live stream when he said he knew he was going to be recorded and he knew Kate was giving the stuff to Shuli.
As you know, it's funny because a lot of people ask me, well, then why do they even talk about that? And why do the defendants even talk about that in their response? And the way that I usually describe that is because you don't get a second bite at the apple. If the motion to dismiss is not granted, you want to have laid out all of those arguments so that you preserve all of that information within the lawsuit. Am I kind of on the right track there, or is that totally
you can
off?
still bring it up because a motion for summary judgment is typically filed after discovery is done, like depositions and interrogatories, document requests and stuff. So the motion for summary judgment is telling the judge that based on all this evidence, we should still win. So whereas a motion to dismiss comes pretty soon after the case is filed.
I know in New York, it's a little, I might be entirely wrong about this, so take it with a grain of salt. I think that usually Oh, no, you know what? I don't even want to say it because I think I'm so wrong. That's how wrong I am. I'm going to trust Judy on this one is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
We have He is the Protagonist coming in with a $3 super sticker. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ronnie 411 for £6. Judy, you are way too nice for the Dabbleverse. Get out while you can.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for
Horrible
reporting.
advice.
Yeah.
We want Judy here forever. We have $20 from Donna G. Hi, Donna G.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee and Miss Judy, doing the Lord's work. Have a wonderful holiday. Happy holidays, Donna G. AA Voyager Andrew W. for a $10 super sticker. Thank you so much. Rumpled Trenchcoat coming in with $5. There's nothing wrong with asking a woman to dinner once. When she says no and he keeps asking 27 more times, that is the problem.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
Plus the creepy faces. You know, I mean, what woman gets turned on and changes her mind when she sees these like faces like, ha ha ha, you know, like these like creepy, cringy faces. I mean, it's.
Judy, I gotta ask you. I'm gonna give you an out. You don't have to answer me. Do you really think that he's attractive?
For his age. Let's just say for his age.
That is a great qualifier.
Also, if he didn't keep drinking, if he didn't keep yelling on live streams, complaining all the time, burping, you know, this talk about having sex with 250 or 300 women and genital warts.
Yeah, if he wasn't who he was, he might be attractive. I agree. If he was a totally different person.
He looked decent when he was all nicely washed and dressed in that suit for his friend's wedding or something. Yeah. So he can clean himself up, but in terms of talking about certain things, like why brag about, you know, the having so many sex partners and you know, I mean, there are certain topics you don't bring up when you want to impress someone.
Things that have never attracted me to a man include a guy going, yeah, I banged 300 chicks. That's great. Like, I'd never have I been attracted to a man who has said that to me.
Or somebody who lives with his mother. That's usually like,
not a good,
you know, like, why are you living with your mom? You know, and eating hungry man dinners and talking about it. I mean, actually, like I said, some of that hungry man stuff does taste good once in a while, but to brag about it, like, hey guys, this is what I'm having for dinner. But it's funny though. So, you know, he does have some funny moments. But like I told Vince, I was like, he could totally get some Filipino woman.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Like a pretty nice looking 30s, 40s.
I think you're 100% correct about that. That's probably his best bet at this point. In fact, instead of flying women out from, you know, across the country,
DC.
That would, DC. Thank you. I was like, I can't remember where your sister was.
There's these like data Filipino websites because I've seen them. They flash up on my website because of that.
You got a weird search history then.
No, it's because of the Dan Markel murder case that I covered.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it involved a Filipino woman, Katie Magbanua. So I started seeing these like find a Filipina dating website ads rolling up on my websites and stuff. So yeah, but he would totally, you know, I think some straight from Southeast Asia type of Asian woman who looks good, but she wants to come to America and she would be happy to be with this funny white appearing American man.
Wouldn't you to some point though say that means that she has low standards?
Well, that's not a nice thing to say, but isn't dating?
You don't have to say it.
Dating is usually some sort of like economic give and take.
Yes.
Yeah. Like some people will put up with this because the person is rich. You know,
we got to have a cost benefit analysis to all of our romantic partners.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
We got Daddy Poopy coming in for $2. Judy is a gift. You're okay, Lucy.
Aww.
I could not agree more. Judy is a gift.
Aww.
Maury Often for $1.99. Miss Judy, gorgeous and smart. God gave with both hands. Very true.
Thank you.
We have Sorcerer coming in for $10. This is an awesome show. Judy seems As shocked by this as we are, hearing a lawyer say weird and bizarre just lends to how wild the LOLsuit really is. Great job. Thank you so much, Sorcerer. Also, I'm pretty sure I owe you an email. Apologies. I'm very, very, very behind right now. Steve with $10. Thank you so very much. And we have the wonderful trucker Andy coming in from All Apologies Podcast for $2. Judy, what is the worst thing that Vince has done in real life?
I haven't known him for that long, so I'm not sure. But there have been some things, but from what he and other people on this Dabbleverse thing say, they say that you shouldn't react to anything because once they see your reaction, then they'll know what gets you and then they'll do it even more. So, so I refuse to say. But he has done some, what most normal people would think are kind of strange or shitty things.
It happens sometimes. We have JD Straight Shot 42069 became a new member. I believe that's probably over on your channel over there at AA Legal Focus. Everybody, make sure that you are subscribed over there. Make sure that you're liking and watching all of the videos. Judy has already talked about a few of the topics she's been covering, but absolutely amazing legal content. And I think you actually have some other stuff coming up. I think tomorrow night you're actually going to be going live with Vince. And what are you guys talking about?
Well, of course, we have to talk a little bit about the Dabbleverse, right? Because it's so hard to prepare for live stream shows. And I've spent so much time in the last 2 or 3 days learning about this whole Dabbleverse stuff and the lawsuit and stuff. So why don't I just talk a little about it plus true crime? Because most people come to my channel for the true crime Dan Markel case type of info. Yeah.
Well, don't forget, everybody, AA Legal Focus over there. J4's New York for $5. Tabber filed a settlement offer with the court previously not communicated to the defendants, which directly supports defendant's slap claim. I think I want to clarify this statement a little bit. I do believe that it was communicated to the defendants. So I believe that what this comment is talking about is that Tabber actually sent a letter both to the court and to the defendant's attorney, Danny, in which they said, we will settle if Karl and Shuli will just stop talking about John. And that is a direct support of a slap claim because it does actually say that we are trying to silence Karl and Shuli. So if the goal of the lawsuit is unrelated to making up for monetary damages, then the purpose and intention of the lawsuit is what we sometimes refer to as lawfare, when we are just filing a lawsuit in order to silence somebody. And that is exactly what anti-slap is setting out to protect.
Well, why would a settlement offer be filed with the court, though?
So as we talked about previously, it's a little peculiar that Tabber keeps responding via letters at all of these things. Let me see if I can find it. So he sends it as a letter as a part of a motion, if I remember correctly. So I believe that it was part of a reply.
So
and I'm going to be honest with you.
Exhibit?
It was an exhibit. So again, we have 73 documents for the court here. And I don't know that I can find that. Oh, actually, I can find that one pretty quickly. Hang on one second. Let's take a peek at it real quick. As long as you got a little bit more time here, Judy. I'm sorry for...
okay. That's okay. We just have to trust the super chat, right? Because
we
Vince
always have to trust the super chat. This is a very, very interesting letter. So I'm going to put this up on the screen here and we'll read through some of it. Don't think I have this version highlighted, but at least I have it handy, right? So this is a letter that was filed with the court and as well was also sent to Danny Savalos, which again is Karl and Shuli's attorney. And it says that Tabber is looking forward to working amicably with Danny on this case. And he also says, second, I spoke with our client, referring to John. Our client, John, is interested in seeing a resolution to this matter as long as the defendants, Karl and Shuli, collectively agree to refrain from using his image, likeness, audio, visual, and persona. In other words, I will stop suing you for, at the time, it was actually $600,000. I will stop suing you for $600,000 if Karl and Shuli just refrain from using my image, likeness, audio, visual, and persona. Now, right around this time period, they also, Taber Benedict also filed a motion which increased the legal amount that he was requesting. Initially, he was requesting $600,000. He bumped it up to $850,000. So in lieu of giving me $850,000, we will absolutely settle as long as Karl and Shuli just stop talking about us, about me, pardon me.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking, in a way, all this fuss over John is helping him, because it kind of like, it's like some sort of like weird symbiotic relationship where he's just got some sort of draw to him where people want to see, what is he doing? What is he saying? What's he having for dinner? How are things with his mom? Is he going to get a job or perform at this comedy club? And, so people get excited about it. So the more that Shuli and Karl and these other YouTubers cover him, the more notoriety he's getting for himself, and hopefully the more super chats and revenue. And on that note, he should also keep his content up, because you can make more money off of YouTube revenue if you keep it up. So what's the point of just doing something and then bam, it's gone?
I could not agree with you more there. Karl and Shuli have made him more money than he ever would have made by himself, because they have drawn so much attention to him. And in order to win a lawsuit like this, John would need to prove monetary damages. I think that if somebody were to look at his financials, that it would probably prove quite the opposite, that Karl and Shuli have actually likely made him money. And so I don't know how he expects to be awarded $850,000 when likely he has made more money off of this than he has lost.
Yeah. I mean, I never even heard of him before. And I know some people laugh about that, but a couple of my YouTuber friends, they also said, yeah, I never heard of him.
Yeah.
But it's because Vince came into our LawTube true crime world and started telling us about John Melendez. Then some people got interested. And if he came to some comedy club near me, sure, I would go see him. But before all this stuff, I never heard of this guy before. I never would have seen his channel or been tempted to go pay money to see him perform.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think a lot of people have that experience, actually.
Yeah. Have you seen him perform?
I've never seen him perform. I used to listen to Howard Stern back in the day, so I was familiar with him, but not super familiar. I know more about him than I ever could have imagined knowing in my entire life. And if he came nearby, I don't know if I would go see him perform or not. That would be a big moral dilemma for me. I probably would. But I was sad when he didn't, he said on multiple occasions that he was going to come to some of our live events. He actually just was saying, I think the other day, that he's going to come to Hackamania 3, which of course is April 10th through the 12th, 2026, hackamania.com. And you can use promo code Cayley, Cayley, to save 10% on your tickets. But John was I hope that John uses my promo code, actually. He was just saying that he was going to go to that. Who knows if he will or not, but I would love it if he did. I think it would be great. I think it would be great for him also. I think
exactly. Like, think of, he could show up with tons of his memorabilia and, ask people to pay for pictures with him, or, there's money involved if people are willing to pay to go out there. So, but just real fast, how did you even get involved in this stuff?
So I actually, Karl started his podcast many a year ago, and I actually perform in a surf rock instrumental band with Karl and producer Chris called the Isotopes. So I do go-go dancing in their instrumental surf rock band. And I think that one day Karl was just hard up for a guest on the podcast, and he said, come sit in a chair. And so I sat in a chair and then I got suckered in like everybody does because it is so addicting.
Okay, that's interesting. I had no idea you were good friends with them.
Yeah. And again, that's why I do get accused of being biased when it comes to the lawsuit, because I've known Shuli for substantially less time because, again, he doesn't live in Rochester. But all my Rochester boys, these are, some of my best friends. These are people that I go out and have drinks with, that we all go out and get dinner together. I think that Karl, producer Chris, Andy, Vinny, these guys are some of the best guys in the world, and they're some of my greatest friends, and I feel honored to get to work with them. So
cool. Yeah. So I think that's another thing I noticed right off the bat was, why is this thing filed in New York City? Yeah. Yes. So I mean, what's the order of things? Is the motion to dismiss scheduled?
That's a great question. So the next actual conference date is going to be February 17th, 2026. So the court has not yet scheduled the motions. Technically, the motions were on submission on September 19th, 2025, but all that means is the court put them in a different stack of papers in New York. So they didn't actually look at any of the paperwork at that point. But on February 17th, 2026, we are going to have another conference date, and that is probably going to be, it's what's called like a preliminary conference. And in New York, typically what that's going to be is going to be scheduling things like the discovery, scheduling any depositions. It's going to be making sure that all the attorneys agree on all the dates for things. On the other hand, the court might look at the motion to dismiss before that date, because there's no reason to schedule all of that stuff if the motion to dismiss is going to be granted. So it's entirely plausible that on February 17th, 2026, if the court finds that the lawsuit is egregious enough, again, not necessarily frivolous enough, but egregious enough, that we are going to get that motion to dismiss granted on that date. So that will be interesting.
Oh, well, can't the defendant's attorneys just go ahead and schedule the motion to dismiss hearing?
I believe that the way that works in New York, and again, I'm not entirely familiar with the court procedure, but I believe the way that it's going to work is that it's during that conference that everybody schedules it.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay.
That's how it works in New York.
Yeah, because
it's a little different.
Yeah.
It's a little different in the boring real estate law than it is in this like civil procedure. I think that because there are so many motions on this one, that the way that procedurally that it's going to work is that they are going to go into this court date and figure out when they're going to be able to do everything else.
Yeah, that's why it's so frustrating when it's your case, that it seems like it's just dragging on for so long.
People ask me a lot of the time when I think that this lawsuit is going to be over. It started in August of 2025. I think that it is fully possible that we will not have a decision until August of 2026. I mean, that's not uncommon for New York state courts, New York County courts specifically. That being said, if the motion to change venue is granted and this is moved to Monroe County, which is a substantially less busy court system, we could get a decision much sooner. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to move this to Monroe County. It will end things sooner for both parties. And I think that everybody can agree that would be better. Who wants it to drag on,
Yeah, that's true. Well, it gives us more to talk about, I suppose. So,
we want it to keep going. The litigants probably don't want it to keep going. I don't want it to keep going either. I don't feel good for anybody in this lawsuit. I don't.
Yeah. Do you want to hit the super chats and call it a night? Sorry to take you off on different directions.
No, I'm always happy to go off on tangents with you, and this has been wonderful. Thank you again. We do have JD Straight Shot for $20.69 for $2. Thank you for covering this. Well, thank you for listening. And the amazing Troy Smith for $2. Hello, ladies. Judy, you rule. VTL is a worm. FSJ. JD Straight Shot coming back in for another $2. Judy is the Dabbleverse newcomer of the year. I might even say of the Dabbleverse creation forever. I don't know. Of ever. Hey, good job for $10. Asking as a complete simpleton, at what point in the will the court start considering SJ I can never say that word, vexatious litigant.
Vexatious.
Yeah, I can never say it. Never, not a single time. You two need to do these on the reg. It's going to be interesting to see what the court has to say on this one. That is
Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen because I had this happen in a case that I had just a year or so ago. This lady filed probably like 8 different lawsuits over and over again against different people. But, you know, I tried to get a gatekeeper order against this person. The judge denied it. Then finally she sued again, frivolous claims. And then finally, a different judge did enter a gatekeeper order. But I don't know how many lawsuits total he's been involved in, though. So
yeah.
My guess is he's probably not going to be subject to a gatekeeper order anytime soon.
That makes a lot of sense. We got Reverend Rage coming in for $2. Judy, your opinion on who will come out best in the lawsuit?
Okay. Well, I'm just going on what you told me. So
Yes.
I haven't seen the evidence. I haven't read the whole file. So, and of course, I've only done, say, a few hours of legal research. So, you know, I would just, my wild guess is that probably defense will probably win, mainly because of the way the attorneys look from the outset, okay? Because you got this guy, Danny, I'm sorry, I can't remember his last Savalos. Yeah, I mean, he seems to really know what he's talking about. And I've seen some of his YouTube videos. Apparently, he just came out with his own YouTube channel. Seems like every attorney wants to have a YouTube channel. So I wish him the best of luck because, you know, it's like so saturated, right? But he speaks really well. He seems to know what he's doing. He went to great schools. And, you know, I'm just really impressed with how he comes out with his guns blazing in that motion to dismiss with like 3 pages of legal citation. Who does that?
It's amazing.
You know, that by itself is just very impressive. If only he'll put periods where they are needed. But
he's going to start doing it in the next motion because you made this comment. I'm going to love it.
V period. I've never seen someone just say V for verses with no period. You know, it's just bizarre. But yeah, it seems like he really knows what he's doing. He's actively practiced law. He didn't get disbarred. And, you know, I mean, it does seem like he focused more on criminal defense. And then he also taught health ethics or something, but then he's also been involved with the media too for many years. So he just sounds like a very intelligent person. Based on what little I've seen of Tabbert Benedict, I mean, sorry to say, but if I were in a legal bind, I wouldn't want him as an attorney.
I could not agree more. Could not agree more. Knight of 2A, $25. Great job, ladies. Thank you so very much. Alpha Shane, 1980 for $10. You two are very good together. Hopefully you will do more in the future. I hope so as well, Judy. This has been a true pleasure of mine.
Sure. Yeah, it's been fun.
Joe Costello, 952 for $5. Judy, what is your take on John striking and silencing Shuli's channel over and over again? Thank you.
What to say? You know? I mean, because YouTube, okay, this is my limited experience having been growing my channel for five and a half years or something. YouTube has totally different standards as to what they'll allow you to do versus what state law says. Yes. So I don't know. I guess it's up to YouTube to create their rules as to what can happen. Yeah, but I hate to be a broken...
Do you think anybody should be striking channels? Let's ask that as a more general question. So like, I am a personal believer that we all work really hard for our channels, right? You and I work very hard for our channels. Everybody who has a YouTube channel it is challenging stuff. A lot of work goes into it. Like you said, you did 10 hours of legal research just to come and talk about this malarkey with me. It is a lot of work that we put into this. And I think that striking a channel, if it is even sort of on a basis that is groundless, is a really inappropriate thing to do. I am very anti-striking channels. I don't think that we should be doing that to each other at all, you know?
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends. Like you said, if the person is actually giving commentary and adding value, then I think it's okay. Otherwise, I'd be pissed if someone just took video from my live streams and then slapped it up on their channel to make money or get attention. So, yeah, I mean, there was only one time I did some sort of complaint against some true crime channel because they pretty much ripped off this whole Peacock TV documentary about the murder of my friend Robert Wan. And I was involved in that documentary. So as soon as I saw this thing on the person's channel, I was like, this is a complete crock. You just took footage from someone else's hard work and then added some, sounded like fake AI narration, and then pieced it together. And they used some photos of the victim that I had personally taken. So I was able to use that grounds to strike that video. And some people got mad at me, but I was like, this is a crock of, just like total ripoff, because the people who put that documentary together spent tons of money putting it together, hiring actors to recreate the scenes, paying to get access to the murder home. And, they spent lots of money. So if I didn't do it, I'm sure Peacock TV
they would have,
or NBC would have definitely had done it.
And I don't know how much you're ever turning on Karl and Shuli's content where, you're just kind of tuning in. I know you're paying attention to a lot of things, but I also know that you're a very busy lady. I would say that whenever I tune into, the Shuli Network, or whenever I tune into Who Are These Podcasts, I'm always seeing that commentary. I don't think that I've ever seen on either one of their channels. And so I do think that that's the difference. And I think that that's why Joe Costello is asking you this question here, which is definitely an interesting one.
Yeah.
It's a challenging one.
Like I said already, he should sort of be grateful that people care enough about him to watch him and want to joke about it and get all into his life. I think he's more mad that he wants some of the money. So
bingo.
Yeah, so why not give him something out of goodwill? Even if it's just like a delivery of some salad and wings.
I don't think he would eat the salad. There was a very long time ago he was asking about rotten vegetables. That was very disgusting.
Oh, I guess I missed that. Yeah.
Captain Cheese coming in for $5. Ladies, this legal mumbo jumbo is great, but when are y'all gonna break out the baby oil? Listen, that's for after the show, and you know it there, Captain Cheese. Jay Wolfenstein for $5. Judy and Lucy together at last. I don't have to say anything, but take my money away. Why, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
June Cleavers Beaver for $2 Canadian. Weekly show, please. I think we are probably both too busy for that, but hopefully we will collaborate again soon. Next up, we have G. Shepherdini for $2. Great show, ladies. Can't wait for episode 2. Love, Judy. Jay Wolfenstein for $2 more. Judy, ditch Vince. Lucy's where it's at. I think that Judy is where it's at, and we all know that. Thank you again. Jay Wolfenstein for another $2. What if I say pretty please? Pretty please. And another $2. Pretty please.
Well, like Vince helps me get views, and he's a fun person to talk to. So, if you look at the numbers, he's helping. So.
Does it ever bother you that he brings up things from personal conversations that you guys have? Like sometimes, like,
yeah, of course. Yeah, it's kind of annoying at times, but other times it's like, hey, it's like something to talk about, and it's okay, because in some respects I can be an open book sometimes, depending on the topic. Like when he brought up my father marrying this much younger woman. I was like, geez, I told you that in private. Why did you have, I mean, for a more sensitive person, they could have been really pissed off and stuff. But I was like, let's just roll with it, because what's there to be embarrassed about? That's my father's life. Yeah. And that's life. That happens to lots of people, where their parent dies and the other parent marries some much younger person.
You couldn't be more right about that, but I also would be annoyed. So like, again, like I said, so I hang out with Andy, producer Chris, and Karl all the time. I hang out with Vinny some of the time. He's a busy guy. But you know, I hang out with all these guys all the time, and we all have personal conversations that we don't talk about on air, because that's just like a line that you don't, I don't know. There's been a couple of things that Vince has said recently on podcasts that I was like, wow, if I was Judy, I wouldn't be so happy about that. But you always handle it with great spirits. You have a wonderful spirit about you. So.
Yeah. We'll see what he does next, because I think he's trying to push the envelope sometimes.
Well, you know, and let's be honest, you just said that sometimes it's a good topic of conversation. You and I have been talking for substantially longer than you had originally wanted to be on the show tonight. I appreciate you. But we've never run out of topics of conversation, right? And I've never brought anything up about your personal life, you know?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, something should remain private, because you don't know if other people will get mad, you know? Like when he brought up my relative who didn't know how to have sex on the wedding night. I was like, geez, I should have known that he would bring that out in public. And I hope people that I actually know don't hear that, you know, because it can be embarrassing to third parties.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We got Aaron Brown for $5. Love the show. Lucy, have you received my packages from me? Just checking. Go Miss Judy. Judy, are you scared to tell John no chance?
No, I mean, I think it's part of the fun is that, you know, there's always a chance with anyone, right?
there's always a chance.
Yeah.
And Aaron, did you send me a bottle of whiskey? Because it didn't come with a name on it, and I think that it might have been from you. We have to have a conversation about that. Send me a message over on Twitter, once over Kaylee on Twitter, and we'll figure that out, because I know there's some other packages for me right now at the Who Are These Podcasts mailbox. So I will find out about John's Gimpy Halloween hand, one of my favorites. Hi, John's Gimpy Halloween hand, $2.
Thank you.
My two favorite Dabbleverse ladies, happy holidays, gals. Thank you and happy holidays. David the Cobra for $5. My take, Stutjo was the author of that lawsuit with Vince's help, which is why he thinks he is lawyer material. Do you think that Vince helped with this lawsuit at all?
Well, I mean, I thought it was kind of strange how the complaint mentioned Lazy Law News, you know, because I'm like, wait a second, you know, like, I think last year, I don't think Vince had a lot of views on that channel. So it just seemed kind of bizarre that the complaint would mention his channel.
Oh,
yeah. So, but on the other hand, Tabor Benedict, as an attorney who is signing off on this, he has the obligation to, you know, make sure that the lawsuit is whatever, you know, valid or true or based in fact, and, you know, not done to harass people.
When he signed off on his attorney affirmation, he is saying that he has reviewed all of the documents and all of the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, and this is all accurate information. So that is Tabor's lawsuit, regardless of what happened in the background. But Judy, I think you identified something very, very peculiar about the lawsuit, which is that loophole lawyer reference in there. Very
lazy
odd.
law.
Or,
lazy
I'm sorry,
law
yes.
News, or
my brain is officially going at this point.
Okay.
Jay Wolfenstein for $10. John won't talk about his divorce because there's nothing so awful we wouldn't assume it to be true. Seriously, I could believe anything negative about him without evidence. I always like evidence, but I see your point. Ghost Crusader TV, $10. I'm sorry, $20. Thank you so much. Oh, look, it's Karl's daughter wife. How are you doing, Juicy Lucy Timebox? Wishing you a Merry Hanukkah and Happy New Year. Hi, Judy. Question. You think Vince is lying when he tells John he has a winning case. Okay, bye-bye.
Well, like I said, I mean, I don't know the full facts of the case. Haven't even read 100% of the filings, and I haven't done tons of legal research. And so, the only thing that seems like it could be more plausible would be charging people $40 per person to play his phone call. But once again, I'm not sure what the law is there, because that was a phone call that Kate made, and she was a party, and she voluntarily gave it to them. It wasn't like it was a recording of John performing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
It was like a personal phone call that Kate voluntarily took part in.
So do you think that Vince sincerely believes that John will win this lawsuit?
I don't know. It's kind of asking me to put myself in Vince's head. Like, what does Vince
can't
think?
do that. Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
We got Glazy for $25 super sticker. Thank you so much. Derelict Derek, the amazing Derelict Derek for $10. Judy, I love you. Do you think John is doing this for attention? Do you think that he's smart enough to be a lawyer? I love your chalk art, Lucy. Hope you both have a wonderful holidays.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's just attention. I think he wants money, and he wants people to stop making fun of him. But in the long run, I think it's a positive thing, because the more stuff that gets riled up and more people talking about him, like I just said, it's a positive thing for him, because, what's worse is becoming like some former celebrity where no one talks about you and no one wants to see your show. Nobody wants your autograph. Nobody wants to take pictures with you, so even if it's sort of negative publicity, it's still something that I think is positive for him and can bring him more money. Do I think he's smart enough to be a lawyer? Well, maybe when he's not drinking. Yeah, because there have been times of lucidity where he did seem more rational. Like when he was talking to me and telling me that he thinks Vince is mentally ill, like, Judy, let's get serious here. Let me tell you this.
That's my favorite example. That's my favorite example of John being rational. And I just want to tell you that right now. That's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, if he would just let the alcohol, I mean, there can be times that I've seen, and once again, it's not like I've seen everything that he's done and stuff, but I mean, he had to be somewhat smart to get those jobs with Howard Stern and Jay Leno. Like, you can't be stupid. And he went to NYU, which is a good school. His kids are smart, so maybe they inherited some of that from him, So, I mean, there are plenty of older people who go to law school.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys had a conversation about that recently. And I was thinking about, I know a couple of people who went to law school in their 60s and 70s and all did wonderfully and are now practicing attorneys and are great and love their careers. So it's not impossible. I just think it might be impossible with him. Reverend Rage, we have coming in for another $5. So Lucy, if me, the Reverend, pretended to love you and secretly recorded you just so you could give the tapes to John so he could pay-per-view, would you sue John? I never talk on the phone, so I don't think that I have to deal with that problem at all. We got Jay Wolfenstein coming in for $5. Okay, after that bad imitation of Kate Meany laugh, I want my super chat money back. I understand. It was awful. I'll never do it again. I promise. YTVR5K, $5. Judy, it was a 2-day event with multiple podcast shows participating in their own content. The tapes were barely 15% of the content. This is a very good point. So even though the tapes were featured during those podcasts, there were also other things featured that had absolutely nothing to do with John. Plenty of other stuff. Trucker Andy from All Apologies podcast often gets a lot of shit for his Simpsons trivia game that was played during one of those two events. So there was plenty of other things going on during these events as well.
And that changes changes things. Yeah.
That was a very good point. Very, very good point. Florida 49er fan for $10. John reached out to Kate prior to the second round of tapes after he attacked her and reached out to her mother, calling Kate a drug addict and prostitute. He deserved everything he got. People get very passionate about the things that John has done, retaliatory wise and also otherwise. It's not always about first blood, and sometimes if it was, he's drawing it. Not so great things, but again, too big of a conversation for us today. We have Weird Medicine, the amazing Dr. Steve, gifting 10 AA Legal Focus memberships. Wonderful. Everybody, again, make sure that you are going over and checking out Judy on AA Legal Focus. Truly incredible channel. Lots and lots of fun content over there. And I hope that everybody is enjoying that. And Dr. Steve, lovely to see you in the chat.
Yeah.
Jay Wolfenstein for $5. A merch idea. I'm going to trust Judy on this one, tease. I am always going to trust Judy on this one. Always.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Steve coming in for another $50. Thank you so much, Dr. Steve. Thank you. This is the most intelligent Dabbleverse related conversation ever. Fascinating. Dr. Steve, you have been a participant in many of those conversations as well, and you are a wonderful, wonderful man. Thank you. Jay Wolfenstein for $2. In short, if John wasn't John, he'd be attractive. Yes, we did, in fact, establish that a little while ago. That was one of my favorite parts of tonight's episode. Frank for $10. Please stay in the Dabbleverse, Miss Judy. I could not agree more. And then coming in for another $10 with a super sticker. And Jay Wolfenstein coming in with $5. Judy, who is the most obnoxious lawyer you've ever heard of? And why is it Vince?
No, it is not Vince. It is definitely this other Italian-American attorney who was my opposing counsel in this god-awful employment law case I had probably like 19 years ago. Geez, like I can't say in a public forum what I envisioned myself doing to him to seek revenge, but he was just such a total a-hole. Yeah, so it's definitely not Vince. I've dealt with much more.
Where is Vince on the sliding scale? Is he around the 50% mark? Is he, where's he at?
No, I mean, Vince has given me many hours of entertainment and fun. So even though he has pissed me off a bunch of times, like I wouldn't keep having him back on my channel if I weren't having fun in some respect. True. And, people watch him. So that's also good because like I was mentioning to other people, I tried to do something serious. So I had this other attorney come on a live stream show to talk about his book and nobody cared. It got like 1,500 views. I probably made like $3 off of it. And it's like, I'm trying to do serious stuff too, but nobody wants to watch it. They'd rather watch me and Vince bitching and moaning at each other and, talking about true crime. And then Vince asked me some sexual stuff and, we'd go off on tangents and act stupid and people like it. So
they do like it. They really
give the consumers what they want.
Yeah. That's one way to grow a channel.
Yeah.
Ghost Crusader TV, $5. Everyone is aware that these shows about John help John. The only person who doesn't understand this is John, who is suing and striking channels. Not a bad point there. Charlotte Prolific for $888 for $5. Does John saying he'll go to Hackamania next year hurt his lawsuit? Also, don't his physical threats hurt his chances?
No, that has nothing to do with proving his legal claims.
Yes. Slowly the orange turns for $2. SJ didn't even hire a good scumbag attorney. Well, don't forget, we still have Bennett Susser on his side. We don't know too much about him. There's always time. There's always time, I suppose. The Smokin' Lesbo for $10. Hey, Judy, I too have vocal fold issues, UVCP as a female. My left vocal cord is externally paralyzed. Going to Rochester for business soon. Hope to catch a local movie night. DCII was a fun time. Yeah, Rochester.
Great.
Oh, DabbleCon 2. I'm stupid. It's officially, it's late for me right now. I traveled yesterday. I'm exhausted.
Oh, no.
But that's okay.
We'll wind up soon.
Is that similar to the vocal issues that you experience?
No, I've gone to 4 different ENTs, and it's involuntary vocal cord tremors. So, and I also feel like it's just getting old, like how a lot of people, as they get older, their voices get raspy and shaky and stuff. And I think I'm just getting old and worn out. So that's another reason why I can't keep live streaming as much or doing it by myself anymore.
Understandably.
So, yeah.
We have June Cleaver's Beaver coming in with $5 Canadian. Could Vince be sanctioned for his interference in this lawsuit? I don't believe that he has. I don't believe that there's any proof that I have seen that he has interfered with this lawsuit.
Yeah, and even if he interfered with the lawsuit, ultimately it's Tapper Benedict whose reputation is on the line because he's the one signing the legal pleadings. So, but see, it's very unlikely that Rule 11 sanctions are granted against an attorney unless it's just so egregious. I've never seen Rule 11 sanctions being brought against anyone, because if there's something plausible there, even if the plaintiff's attorney turns out to be a crappy lawyer, I don't think the judges are going to punish that attorney. So, so even if Vince did sort of do something, which I don't know for sure, there's nothing wrong with that. As far as I know, I mean, it's not like I'm some bar ethics guru. So
who knows what the court will say? The court can do whatever the heck the court wants to do. Aaron is reminding me for $2. I don't have X anymore. Check your Patreon and Discord. I will do that again. I am very, very behind. I apologize. That is completely my bad. Vito Calzone for $2. Judy, do you like men with bloody hemorrhoids?
What kind of question is that? That sounds absolutely disgusting.
There is so much for you to learn about John.
Why did he say he had that?
There is a lovely song called Bloody Ass that we frequently enjoy listening to here in the Dabbleverse, which is all about John, who told many stories about his very intimate problems. So you think the genital warts is bad?
Oh my God.
You missed bloody ass.
Well, let me tell you this. Then why does he spend so much time live streaming? Because the more you sit still, the more likely you are to develop hemorrhoids.
Maybe he's got one of those donut pillows. We don't know what's under there. I don't want to know what's under there
he
either.
He needs to have more fiber. Drinking beer, eating pizza, that doesn't give you fiber. So he needs like Fiber One cereal, oatmeal, flaxseed. I mean, he needs help. Like someone needs to teach him proper nutrition and health.
You're trying to.
I'm trying to. This is like a public service announcement. People need to eat right, get fiber, don't sit still, which is bad because we're just sitting here live streaming, sitting on our butts, developing hemorrhoids.
All day, every day. It's great. We love it. We love it. Ava's a tranny man for $5. I love you, ladies. Miss Judy. Nobody wants John's autograph / to talk to him. John is a hateful person. He left his wife and kids homeless and he hid assets. Again, there is a lot to talk about. We will talk about all of these topics on future episodes, hopefully. And he's a trainee man for another $5. He got a job at Howard Stern by luck, and Jay Leno was trying to screw Howard. John has no talent. He is nothing but a delusional alcoholic.
Oh,
Judy, you are too
nice.
Nice.
That's not a nice thing to say about some perfect stranger to you.
I don't want you to leave the Dabbleverse, but you are too nice for the Dabbleverse.
Well, I'd have
you're
to
a lovely person.
For myself, I don't want to judge people based on what strangers out there in YouTube are saying.
That is the most reasonable thing that anybody can say. I absolutely think that it would be wonderful if you learned more. And that is how I
want to spend my time, like another 15 hours, learning more. Yeah. But reading those divorce files would be pretty cool. Yeah. Do you have them?
I don't.
Oh, well, isn't it public record?
I don't know. So did he get divorced in California or in New York?
I don't know. I mean,
So in New York, divorce filings are sealed.
oh,
So
okay.
I don't know about where he actually got divorced. I would assume that he got divorced in California, and I don't know the rules there.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Well, just out of curiosity, but I really should do some real work that actually makes money as opposed to, reading about Dabbleverse stuff and John's
it's so addictive though.
legal issues. Yeah.
All right, we got another couple coming in here. We have
Thank you.
$10. Hi, Judy. Shuli offered in the beginning to share the wealth with John by offering him a co-host slot and a cut of the super chats. John responded with strikes against his channel.
Really?
I actually don't know that history. So
really? Is that true?
I don't, that is one that I am not aware. Again, there's so much to learn. There's so much to know. I don't recall that, but I do believe it. That being said, you brought up a good point that it's good to see the evidence. So maybe maybe I'll look into that and get some evidence on that one.
Okay.
Ghost Crusaders TV for $20. Recently, John said that on his show that a bunch of people from the Dabbleverse showed up to his show and that they were fans of him, but they knew nothing about the other stuff that he's done. Does him admitting this hurt his suit? I think, Judy, you addressed this earlier, talking about that does not necessarily relate to the right of publicity.
Yeah, I don't think it has bearing on his legal claims. Yeah.
It will be interesting to see what becomes relevant, though, since the suit has gone so far off the tracks. We have June Cleaver's Beaver for $2 Canadian. Vince has represented Shuli before.
Okay.
Jay Wolfenstein for $5. Judy, have you met Vince in real life? Is that what he really looks like, or does the troll wear a human mask?
No, I haven't met him in real life. So that's what's kind of weird about YouTube. It's like I spend so much time with people that I've met through YouTube, but it's like, wait a second, I've never even met you in real life before. So it's very strange. Yeah.
It's always nice when you get to meet those people for the first time, though. I hope maybe one time you'll come out to a Dabbleverse event. I think it would be really lovely to meet you.
Yeah. Well, the Hackamania actually takes place during the Adult National Figure Skating Championship. So I'll be competing in Atlanta then. So I definitely can't go to Hackamania.
That's amazing, though.
Yeah.
I used to figure skate a whole bunch when I was younger, but I eventually gave it up. But I was so excited to learn that you were a figure skater. I thought that was really cool.
So did you actually compete or test?
I did, but it's been so many years. I was a youngin' way back then, so I have almost no memories of it. Those are one of the things that I've pushed that stuff out and moved the Dabbleverse into the memory.
Oh no, you could get back into adult figure skating. Yeah, it's a fun community.
I went skating relatively recently and had a wonderful time, and still could pull off more than I expected to be able to pull off. But it was a workout, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I am going to let us get out of here very soon. Judy, I would love it if you would tell everybody just one more time where exactly everybody can find you, what you have that is exciting and coming up soon.
Well, tomorrow it's Tuesday. See you next Tuesday with Vince, aka Loophole Lawyer. So it's typically at 5, but I think we're doing it tomorrow at 4:30 Eastern time because I have some family get together later tomorrow. So I mean, sometimes there's structure, sometimes there's not, but I've just been so busy lately with court and family stuff. So tomorrow is probably not as structured, but hopefully you guys will join us there.
Yeah, everybody should absolutely be going over. And they can find that on your channel, right? On AA Legal Focus on YouTube?
Yes. So thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. It's very interesting to hear all these stories and learn more about John's legal dealings.
It has been absolutely my pleasure to have you on. I appreciate you doing so much research on this lawsuit. We got a couple more super chats that just came in right here at the last moment, so I'm going to hit those really quick. AA Voyager, Andrew, Kaylee and Judy, great show. Kaylee, I hope you enjoyed the bottle of Debonair whiskey that I sent you. That was absolutely from you. Thank you so much. And I did. I finally tried it. I actually filmed a reaction to it. And Aaron Brown, I bet you sent me the other whiskeys. I have whiskeys up the wazoo right now, and I have video content coming out about them, but I have not done that recently because I've been busy. Jay Wolfenstein, also thank you for the bottle of the Debonair. It was lovely. I was very surprised by it. Jay Wolfenstein for $5. Judy, if Vince eats after midnight, does he become a gremlin, or does he just become even more evil? I'll let you get out of that one.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met him in real life, so who knows? Everything's probably like a big act to him. It gives him joy.
It does. All right, we got Frame coming in for a $10 super sticker. Thank you so much. We are closing out the night here with Miss Judy Needs the Blessings of Tukey and Cardiff. I agree. Wonderful, wonderful guy and puppet, or I guess potato and puppet, some might say. I am going to close us out for the night. Miss Judy, thank you again so much for joining me. Everybody go over to AA Legal Focus. I cannot say thank you enough for coming and hanging out so long so that we could talk all about this LOLsuit, lawsuit, whatever we're going to call it today or any other day. Thank you again, Judy. And thank you guys all for watching.
Thank you, Karl's Frosted Tips and Drunkle Greg also, because super chat, we can't leave. People keep sending super chats. Jeez, thank you.
They're enjoying it. What can I say? We got Karl's Frosted Tips, KFT. Heck yeah, $2. Judy, John is truly a terrible person. Wait and see. We will have another episode on that at some point. And Drunkle Greg for $2. You ladies rock. You guys all rock. Thank you guys for hanging out so much. And we will see y'all soon. Don't forget, go over and check out AA Legal Focus tomorrow night and subscribe over there. And
should we say skull?
We should say skull. Skull.
Skull.
With our green tea and beer. And
yes, green tea.
Diluted with water beer, green tea. Obviously.
Yes. Cool. It goes out your system in an hour. So just drink all that light beer that you want.
Bye, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye. Thank you.